Everybody good? Okay. Welcome to Pot of the Dead. I am your host, Nicholas Brown, and with me, as always, the two beautiful ladies, Natasha and Stephanie. On today's episode, we will be talking about the 2018 movie Birdbox. This was a Netflix streaming exclusive that came out starring Sandra Bullock and John Malkovich. What are your guys' history with this film prior to watching it today? Yesterday.
I'd heard of it. It was always one that was on my list to watch, and I just never got around to it. Judging by a couple little scenes that I had seen, it seemed like it was going to be really slow, so I kind of just kept it on the back burner. So this is my first time watching it.
Yeah, and for me, I watched this probably the week that it came out on Netflix back in 2018, and then I showed it to my children. And I think this was the fifth time I've seen it. So I've watched it quite a few times up until this point.
Yeah, this was my first time watching it, specifically because I tend to stay away from horror films that have big movie stars in them. Specifically because those movies tend to burn me more times than I feel rewarded in them. So no reason, I'm not saying that Sandra Bullock is a bad actress or anything like that, but they tend to be like World War Z, where it's oh, we got Brad Pitt in this movie, and then because it's the big budgeted star, that person's probably not gonna die, and so it kind of removes that stuff. So I just kind of stayed away from it and everything. So, but I did hear a lot of buzz around it, and another film that we will be reviewing soon. I think they came out around the same time, roughly. Was it The Quiet Place? Those two movies came out within the same year, it feels like.
I think we looked that up, and I think that's true.
Yeah. So in that one, that's got the dude from The Office. It's got
John Krasinski.
Yeah. It's got John Krasinski in it and stuff, and I was just kind of meh, and Emily Blunt's also in it.
Yeah, so that movie's good too. So
yeah, and 9 times out of 10, if I haven't watched a film, it's specifically just because I'm busy watching other ones. This one's already getting a lot of attention and stuff. I'll get around to it when I get around to it. That's 9 times out of 10 why I will pass up these bigger budgeted films, because more people are going to watch it. They don't need my money. Realistically, it comes off as it's popular, you don't want to watch it, and it's it has nothing to do with want, it just has to do with they don't need my money. Don't you dare say anything over there, Stephanie. I see you.
I'm going to.
Please chime in.
All of the things that you watch and listen to are all in that same scope. It's it's big budget, it makes a lot of money, everybody likes it. Nick sticks his nose up and says, fuck
Not
this shit.
For me.
Don't stick my nose up to that.
Yes, you do. You're oh, it's fine if you like it, but I am not going to like this. I am not going to watch this. It is so
I'm
fucking
above
true.
That. It is true. I'll vouch for you, Steph.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. And it's not that you don't end up watching some of that stuff and having some appreciation for it, but I think you're also a harsher critic on those because you're they're bigger budgeted, because they have famous actors or people who have made more money in their careers in this world. And you're very harsh in that, versus if you watch something oh, I don't know, The fucking Reanimator, you're this is the greatest thing ever. And it's the lowest budget, no famous actor movie.
It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be a big budget famous actor movie to be amazing. Look at the Blair Witch Project.
I didn't say it did. I'm just saying that's just
the movie was made for $25,000.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's cheap as fuck.
It's legitimately the highest grossing film against budget film ever.
Okay, I didn't know that.
It made $100 and some odd million on a $25,000 budget.
That is one example, though.
Yeah.
Another one, Paranormal Activity. I think that was done for $15,000.
All right.
I have never seen that. So.
Oh yeah. See.
Okay.
No, it's just one of those things. I'll go see a drama and stuff with the bigger actors and stuff like that. But once they start stepping around in my horror movies, I'm I don't know about all this. Jessica,
I think it is specifically towards horror movies and your for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and your specific genre of music too. Like you like death metal or like heavier metal stuff, and like you're not big into the really popular ones. You're into the smaller, more indie musicians.
But I think that also is the type of sound. Like his sound isn't mainstream. I don't
Correct.
think if it was mainstream, I wonder if you would still like it, or if it would like change your perception.
Oh, you think that I'm just going to walk away from them because they got popular?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, would you?
Yeah. No. No, because there.
No.
That was quick.
Well, no, I mean, there are bands that, probably one of my favorite metal bands, period, are the Deftones. And they're huge. And I still have a soft spot for the first three Korn albums and stuff like that. And previously.
But that's nostalgia.
Well, it doesn't. That doesn't
I think
matter.
that still counts, though.
I mean, I still like Metallica from Injustice for All. Well, Black Album actually backwards. There's a lot of that stuff, but it's one of those things. When a band's been out for a long time, it's no different than a TV series that has a lot of seasons. Unless it keeps me interested, I'm going to call it quits. And 9 times out of 10, when those bands have been around a long time and then they're finally getting popular, I've already called it quits on them because it's I don't need to hear. I like the first 3 Ghost albums, and I think it was their third album was when they got big off of big, and now their stuff's kind of changed. It's I don't like that stuff. I like their older stuff. Their stuff's a lot more poppy, and that's just not what I was in it for.
Okay.
But anyway, my God, we're talking about Birdbox.
That's okay. We can talk about whatever the hell we want to.
Yeah, this is our podcast.
This is our podcast.
That's right. So yes, we're talking about the 2018 film Bird Box, which Nick made this point yesterday, because we always like talking about box office and how much money it made versus how much it cost. And unfortunately, there's going to be no money about how much is made because it's Netflix.
Yeah, this was the first direct to streaming movie that we've done. I can give you some numbers of people. So its budget was $19.8 million.
That's pretty high.
Just shy of $20 million. And in its first weekend, I believe it got 25 million viewers.
Oh Jesus, that's good. Okay.
So I don't know how that translates to dollars, but yeah, it did pretty decent in that sense.
So with the viewers though, do they specify whether or not that was just views of the movie, if people watch it repetitively, or if it was per account?
Well, what I've got here is it says it released on December 21st of 2018, and the film received mixed reviews from critics, but went on to become the most watched film on Netflix within 28 days of its release.
Okay. Oh wow!
So, I mean, that's pretty big deal considering nowadays they seem to release a shit ton of movies and stuff like that, but 2018, that's 5 years ago. I don't remember them pumping out as much back then.
No, and they're also not putting a lot of oomph into a lot of the movies they're releasing now. It seems like we'll hear a little bit about them beforehand, and then they're just dropping them, and then you're just picking them up randomly when you're getting on there to look around.
Yeah, not realizing that they've actually come out already. There's no hype.
Yeah. The only thing they hype now, I think, is their series, maybe a little bit more.
And I mean, that's kind of been their bread and butter. I feel they've gotten into movies and stuff like that, but there are very few films that I think that they have they've made, not that they've bought and brought, but that they have funded or whatever. That it just, I don't know. Netflix is not where I go for movies. It's where I go for I like their television series, documentaries, stuff like that. But back in the day, Netflix was the shit. But now all these other streaming services pull movies to all their different directions and stuff like that. Peacock, for instance, right now is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Oh, really? For movies?
Yeah, they've got a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, Peacock and Paramount Plus really have hit it pretty hard pretty recently, I would say. They bring out a lot of newer stuff or things that are interesting, I think.
Okay. I want to give one recommendation for one hot second. Steph, I think you would like this. Nick, I'm not so sure. Have you heard of Behind Her Eyes, the series on Netflix?
I don't think so.
I can't even explain it, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's a 6 or 8 part series.
Okay.
It reminds me of something that you would probably like.
Is it
So.
is it the show that they were talking about where does this have to do with the girl in the hospital? There's like rape and stuff in it.
No.
Okay, that's not the one
No.
I'm thinking of then. That's the
No.
only one I can think of that sounds familiar to that. Okay, I'll look it up. I will just make sure you let me know because I'll look it up later.
Yeah, it's like a married couple, and then there's a third party in it. He's a psychiatrist. A bunch of stuff happens. You don't really know what's happening for the majority of it.
It sounds like a drama. Is it horror adjacent or is it just a drama?
I'd say it's a drama, a suspense drama.
Okay.
Behind her eyes. Okay.
Well,
I'll have to look it up.
I'm going to throw out a recommendation. You like John Wick?
Oh yeah.
Continental
Is it
came out.
good?
We've watched
yeah.
the first 2 episodes of it. It is dope as fuck, and it straight up, like, in the first like 10 minutes, it's like, oh yeah, they read the assignment. This is John. Like, this is
cool.
brutal. This is intense. Like, but it's really good. We can't wait for the last episode because it's only a 3-part miniseries thing.
Okay.
But each episode's like an hour and a half. So
Cool.
Yeah, and it's brutal. Like, it's very graphic. It very stays in the same lineup of the whole John Wick world. It works really well. So
someone gets their fingers blown off and then is told to pick up their fingers.
Oh.
So that's dope.
yeah, it was good.
Cool.
All right. So
Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Anyway,
Anyway.
Bird Box is a 2018 American post-apocalyptic horror thriller film directed by Susan Bear and written by Eric Heiserer. There's a double in there, so Heiserer, based on the 2014 novel of the same name by Josh Mallerman. The film follows the character Mallory Hayes, played by Sandra Bullock, as she tries to protect herself and 2 children from entities which will cause people who look at them to kill themselves. So we know Sandra Bullock's in it. The other big name is John Malkovich. And the rest of the it's got Machine Gun Kelly is in it. And then I'm trying to remember his name. I've got a bunch of names, but I can remember his face. Nope. Trevante Rhodes plays Tom. Okay. So Steph, you can look him up all night long if you'd like. But but I'm drawing a blank. It's his name's Charlie in the movie. He played in Get Out.
Oh yeah,
Lil Rel.
Yeah, Lil Rel.
Howie.
Yeah, he's
in Get Out.
Yeah, I saw him and I was like, oh, I love this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie premiered at the AFI Fest on November 12th, 2018, and began a limited release on December 14th before streaming worldwide on Netflix. So I guess it did get like kind of like a limited release in some theaters, but that's specifically so it can be credible for award season. You have to be in so many theaters to be eligible for awards.
Okay.
But yeah, so the one thing that I did see though is, and I don't even like, Steph, you're an author. So this is like up your alley in a way. Like, imagine this. The film rights to Bird Box were optioned by Universal Pictures prior to the book's release.
So he sent out to his publishers like an overarching theme of what he wanted to write, and they're like, "Sure, we'll buy that from you."
Yeah, the book hadn't even come out. Hadn't even come out yet, and like Universal was like, "Dibs, we're optioning this for a movie."
I think Blake Crouch had also done that. He's like a sci-fi thriller writer. I remember hearing about that, or whoever wrote Ready Player One.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. But I wonder if, like, I don't know much about the Bird Box author because I haven't looked up to it. I do want to read the book, so that's something I'm going to put on my TBR. But I do wonder, like, how famous he was prior to this. Like, if this was one of his first novels and he just, hit it out of the park, or if it was something that just kind of he's already has a really big fan base and they're like, yeah, we're just going to do this, kind of like they did with the Jack Ryan series on Prime or whatever. And then like John Krasinski plays in that, and then they just blew that up, and that was actually a really good series too.
Yeah.
So a little side note, these are things that aren't going to spoil the movie for anybody, but might make it a little more interesting for people. The visual effects of this film were done by Industrial Light and Magic. So
Oh.
Industrial Light and Magic is a division of Lucasfilms, the people that made the Star Wars movies. So they're responsible for everything from like animated films such as Chicken Little, Wall-E, Rango. They did they're actually doing the future animation project of Transformers, an animated movie. It seems like they did the A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, Raiders of the Lost Ark. So a lot of credentials with this. And then also the score for this film was done by Mr. Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails fame and Atticus Ross, his contributor. So
Cool.
they did the score for this film. Sadly, though, let's see here. It says, in a statement on the Nine Inch Nails website, Reznor said, like all soundtrack records we release, we aim for these to play like albums that take you on a journey and can exist as a companion piece to the films and as their own separate works. We created a significant amount of music and conceptual sounds for Bird Box, a lot of which never made it to your ears in the final version of the film. We've decided to present you with this version of the soundtrack record that represents what Bird Box is to us. We hope you enjoy. For those interested, we will be releasing a more expansive physical only offering in the spring. But he later then told Variety that he felt scoring this movie was a waste of time because they mixed the music so low you could barely hear it anyway. And when I saw that he scored it, I was like, I don't remember any of the music in this movie. And then I saw that, I was like, oh, that's why. Like they mixed it way low in the movie.
There's only a couple times in the movie that I think I have it in my notes where I'm like really intense music or something like that. But there was only maybe one time in the movie that it actually stood out enough for me to recognize it. So
yeah. And before we get into everything, on the review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 63% based on 164 reviews as of me pulling this up, with an average rating of 5.8 out of 10. Let's see here, on Metacritic, it has a 51 out of 100 based on 26 critics. So that's what the internet has to say about it. They're putting it in the 5 out of 10 range, pushing 6 out of 10 range. Whether that's our opinions will be found later at the end of the episode. All that being said, this is a movie club, so we will be telling you at the end of the episode what we'll be watching this coming week to talk about on the next episode. So do stick around for that. But without further ado, unless you girls have anything else to say, I'm about to throw that spoiler warning up.
Throw it up.
Yep.
All right. Danger, danger, spoiler warning, danger.
So if you want to be a part of our club, you can find us at facebook.com/podofthedead or else, on Instagram at pod_of_the_dead, or on TikTok at podofthedead. If you want to email us any questions, any complaints, or movie recommendations, you can email us at podofthedead666@gmail.com.
Whatever, I don't give a shit. If you haven't seen this movie, check it out. Go to the end of the episode. It's usually like the last 5-10 minutes of the episode is us just kind of rambling and talking about what we're going to listen to next week. If you don't care about spoilers, you've been warned.
Yep.
So, without further ado, Bird Box from 2018. So, the movie opens with ham radio telling people to use the river. So you're just hearing...
You're missing something.
Oh my God, I've already screwed up. What do you got?
We have ratings to go over.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. How did I forget?
I don't know.
Great question.
All right. We have our 10 out of 10 and our 1 out of 10.
Yes.
So let's go 10 out of 10 first today. Who's got the 10 out of 10?
I do. 10 out of 10. The hype surrounding this movie has been almost overwhelming, and surprise, surprise, when I read the reviews, it's 5s and 6s. There's no way on earth that this movie deserves less than a 10, an absolute pulse-racing thrill ride of a movie that crammed in a hell of a lot into 2 hours. The film that disappointed me the most in 2018 was A Quiet Place, and aside from Emily Blunt's terrific performance, I thought it was very poor. That is what I expected that's what I expected that film to be like. This writing, I expected this quality, this intensity. The best Netflix film I've seen, awesome acting, exciting, and new twist on a story that has been done before, but the delivery here was captivating. Best performance from Sandra. I'm not done yet.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Best performance from Sandra Bullock since Gravity. She was incredible, well supported by the entire cast, particularly John Malkovich and Tom Hollander. Fantastic. Without spoiling it for anyone, I kept saying from the beginning, what about all the people that are bleep? It made sense in the end. A thrill ride. I loved every twist and turn. 10 out of 10.
Right on.
Who's Tom Hollander? Who does he play?
I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look that up.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, Tasha's looking it up. I was
going to say, I had the cast up, and that's not a name that was brought up in the top casting.
Maybe he's the guy that comes into the house that Olivia lets in, maybe? Because he's pretty famous from like Pride and Prejudice, the movie.
You're right. It is him.
Is it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. He's a really good actor. He's been in quite a few things.
Gotcha.
So real quick before we get to the 1 out of 10, Tasha, there was a 10 out of 10 review that I was going to send you, but in the review, it's like, I gave this a 10 out of 10 because I saw how many people have bombed this film. So I was initially going to give it an 8 out of 10. So I'm bumping it up just to offset that. And I was like, absolutely not. We're not allowing that on this podcast.
Oh, just be honest in what you feel.
That's a pity score at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man. All right.
Okay, here we go. Oof, let's see how bad this is. Okay, 1 out of 10. This is a terrible movie. I cannot think of any redeeming moment. One ridiculous thing after another happens for 4 hours. Oh, I am now told it was only 2 hours.
Yeah.
Shut the hell up, honey. For some never explained reason, people all over the world just start committing suicide. Why okay. More grammatical stuff going on. Yeah. Is something about those black things that say it. You know you want to say it. Those black things.
Racist.
Thank you. The obviously crazy guy later drew. Oh, okay. Who knows? Who cares? It clearly had something to do with looking at something somewhere, but only outside, I guess, except for some places outside if the birds are chirping. If you even peek through a window, you're a goner. For some reason, unless the aforementioned birds are chirping, I guess, it's simply impossible to figure out what the rules are here. But Superwoman Bullock, along with super children named Boy and Girl, for some undoubtedly profound reason, can run blindfolded through dense forests and navigate dangerous rapids, all blindfolded with rarely a care in the world. Really? Without a care?
This all sounds about right.
They're just having so much fun.
They have a lot of cares in the world.
Yeah. Sandra Bullock should apologize. Heck, she should change her name.
How dare she?
Yeah, the uncredited birds did a good job.
Yes. Yes. 10 out of 10. Birds. Birds did good. Goats did good in the movie previously. Beyond that, mowers.
Lack thereof.
Mowers.
Yeah, I didn't see any mowers in this movie. 1 out of 10.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so that was lovely.
Wow,
apparently they're just hanging out blindfolded, riding down the river. Apparently, so that was lovely.
All right, so now that we got the polarizing audience out of the way of our
Here's the thing about the 1 out of 10s. Always, it's like they're not watching the movie, and
9 times out of 10, yeah.
And I am a self-proclaimed person who misses a lot of stuff in movies, but they're still good. So it's shocking that all of these 1 out of 10s are just like, nothing's explained. This makes no sense.
Well,
I still don't like it.
Before, like, we really get into it and stuff, like, Steph and I talked, like, I had some problems, like, hard.
Big feelings.
Some super big problems with this movie. And,
I can't wait to hear them.
But it wasn't like what they were saying and everything. No matter how much, like, when you started this and they were like, this movie's terrible, I'm over here just like, yeah.
Lay it down.
But, like, I would never give it a 1 out of 10. You know, it's not worse than Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know,
that's our litmus test.
Yeah, it is.
Which we just saw. They just added it to I think it's HBO Max, maybe, or Max. Sorry. So
yeah, more people can see it.
Y'all can just torture your family.
Yeah.
During this Halloween, or this. Well, no, this would be. We're in Thanksgiving territory now with our release dates.
Yeah.
All right. Are we ready to go?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So, as I previously said, the movie starts with ham radio telling people to use the river, and we get kind of this overhead shot of a river. And Sandra Bullock is laying out the rules, and she's not fucking around. She's talking to these two kids, and is like, "You're gonna listen to me. I will hurt you. Like, if you don't listen to me, because if you don't listen to me, you will die." Like, flat out. And these kids are 5 years old.
Yeah.
I know they're 5 years old because the film didn't let me forget that they were 5 years old.
Yeah. Well, it says that in the opening of the movie was just like, we have this community, it's safe here, and you can't take it with kids. You can't take this route with kids.
Yeah.
And they're making this very clear because they have to be on this river. And then she is sitting there like talking to them in their faces, and it's like very intense, just opening the movie. And she's like, girl, you have your kitty, and boy, you have your dog. And she's just like very forward.
Never saw a kitty or a dog in their like possession during this film.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, you did. You saw
I didn't.
She has a little. She has a Hello Kitty thing.
Yeah,
does she? I see. I didn't notice that, and that makes more sense later on. Yeah, I never.
It is a big part. Yeah,
I was actively watching this film. I did not notice that. I know she said that, but I never saw it. So.
And boy, so go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so she's like, you must listen. Never ever take off your blindfold. If you look, you will die. Do you understand? Like, she is very in their face, like at their level, telling them. It's her way, in my opinion, of being like, I need to get this through to you because I don't want you to die.
Yeah.
So you need to listen to me now.
Mm-hmm. So my original thought about this movie being slow was very quickly changed.
Yes.
Oh,
we start off strong.
Yeah.
We start off strong.
Yeah. So, and they put the birds in the box from their house, and they start taking this rope down to the river blindfolded, and she's counting her steps to go down to the boat. She uncovers the boat, they put it into the water, and she puts the paddles in the water, and then we kind of just fast forward straight to 5 years earlier.
Well, we flash back.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah. We flash back to 5 years earlier, and it tells you, so you know what you're doing in the film. And it shows Mallory, which is Sandra Bullock's character, and she's painting in her apartment, and her sister comes in with a sack of food, and she starts talking to her, and she's like, do you know what's going on right now? And she's like, no, she's just living in her like painter's world, her creative world. And her sister turns on the news, and all the airports and the train stations are being shut down because of this big global thing that they don't know exactly what's going on. And it started in Romania, and they were talking about it just being mass suicides.
Well, they said it was in Europe and Russia, and she basically is just kind of like, well, it's not here, it's in Russia. It's not our problem.
Yeah, but it says on the news broadcast, it was like, it started in Romania.
Oh, yeah,
they started showing it. Yeah, and then she just blew it off like it wasn't a big deal. Like, who cares? It's fine.
Yeah, so then after that, well, one thing that I noticed was the painting, that because she's painting, she's like a painter. It kind of looks like a ripoff of The Last Supper in a way. Yeah. And if you kind of look, the center figure in it is definitely a sketched up version of herself.
Oh, really?
So I was just like, so she's Jesus. Got it.
Okay.
But her sister goes over and critiques her art and is just like, everything looks disconnected. Nothing looks connected. Nobody is looking at each other. They're not having like, it's not a warm photo. It's not a warm picture of where they're embracing each other. It's almost like there's that disconnect. And you get that from this character, Mallory, through the entire film, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's a problem I have through the entire film.
I know it is. And I actually like that part, but he does not. So
before we really go any further into this film, I do want to ask both of you, because Steph, you and I have talked about this, but I want to get it out there. Does this film connect to both of you because it is about a mother's journey, like protecting her kids, or protecting kids rather, through all of this stuff? Does that connect with you? Like, does her actions throughout this film make sense to you? Because for me, I'm just like, there's so many times I'm like, this, even if this was a guy, this doesn't make sense, and blah, 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 and all this stuff.
Go for it, Tasha.
I think so. I mean, we'll have to get to some specifics, but overall, the overarching theme of it hits me as a mom. Like, it was a very emotional movie, especially towards the end. And yeah, I don't think it would hit the same. I don't think I would like it. I think it would probably be I think it would be boring if Sandra Bullock didn't have the kids, if it was just her on a journey.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. It's just her
He's talking about her lack of warmth. Yeah.
Her lack of motherly like stuff, because we'd had the discussion where she was like, well, it feels like it's kind of like a role reversal thing, because later on in the film we meet a character named Tom that seems more motherly, and then she's kind of like the cold, callous dad kind of character. And for me, I'm not that way per se. I mean, like, I might be more that way than mothers and stuff like that, but I'm not like that disconnected, like, do it because I said it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like that, I wasn't sure if that was my reasoning for not liking this film as much as other people, not trying to make it a gender thing. Like, I did say, like, this seems like it's a quote unquote, I believe I said it's a chick flick, in the sense of, this seems like it was like, it's like targeted and through the eyes of women, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying because of that it makes it bad, but I was just like, there's a huge disconnect for me on a lot of stuff, and I didn't know if it connected with you guys and it just didn't connect with me, or if there was something else.
Yeah, I think, like, if you think about towards the beginning, like, even when she was at the doctor's, she already doesn't seem like a warm mom in general. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there is that, like, that connection that she struggles with already. But I think, like, she course corrects, and, like, I would say that at what she does, it didn't strike me as out of line. Like, her callousness, her directness, how mean she was. I think you could balance that out a little bit more, which comes later. But the beginning, yeah, I mean, like, she's telling her kids what she needs to do, or the kids what they need to do to live, because all she wants is to protect them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like, my argument with the film is there's a lot of characters in this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm not going to make this a big diatribe. I think this film, you could have cut a few characters out of this movie and trimmed it down a little bit. And I believe that there are two full characters that have an arc, a full character arc. And that's John Malkovich's character. I believe we get a full character arc from his character. And there's a pair of scissors that I believe gets a full character arc in this movie.
Yes, the scissors have they are their own entity in this movie.
So, anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to go on forever on that. But at this point, we are with Mallory, Sandra Bullock's character, at the gynecologist, her OBGYN, and doesn't think her and her baby will connect. Like, she definitely is talking about, like, it's just a whatever. And her sister's talking about her roommate Ryan, and it's kind of alluded that Ryan might have been her baby daddy, and he has just moved out and stuff like that. And you can go on, Steph.
Well, when they're at the doctor's, Mallory is talking about her not bonding with people, and the doctor offers her up a adoption form. It's like, here, maybe you want to do this for your baby. Her sister, they're kind of joking about how her sister loves horses and how and then it somehow jumps to how their parents were bad parents. And it kind of gives you an understanding through this film that they just weren't raised right. Like their mom seems like she doesn't have Mallory's character doesn't have a relationship with her mom. Their dad isn't in the picture. And then she gets her ultrasound with her baby. She's pretty far along in pregnancy at this point. And then it cuts after this. She's in the bathroom puking, and her sister is talking to her through the door. And she's like, are you puking? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, is it chunky? And I just laughed so hard. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I like that, because it's the sibling ribbing. Because I have sisters giving her shit for puking. She's just giving her yeah, it seems pretty bad in there. Not oh, are you okay? It's just
sucks to be you.
Yeah, they're kind of it's like a tough love kind of relationship between the two. It's like the sister is a little softer side, and then the Mallory's character, Sandra Bullock's character, is the harder side of their relationship. But then she yells, or doesn't yell through the door, but she says, no, it's the smooth kind with her puking. And then she leaves. Her sister goes to get the car, basically, and she goes to leave the hospital, and there's this girl smashing her face on the glass, which is pretty bloody. And then she just gets the hell out of there because she's like, I'm not dealing with this. And she races out of the hospital, and the world is starting to fall apart immediately. You are thrown headfirst into the storyline. And her sister wants to take her to her house. She's like, well, I'll take you here. I'll protect you, whatever. And then there's ambulances crashing and people jumping in front of cars. And it's just absolute insanity ensuing. And she's like, what am I going to do about clothes? And her sister's like, you don't need to worry about that right now. We're just going to get to my house. And her sister's phone starts ringing in the back of the car. And this kind of ends up saving Sandra Bullock's character from not dying at this moment. So she turns around kind of in the car to find her sister's phone to answer it. And that is when her sister sees this entity that is the big bad in this movie. And she's like, oh my God, what the fuck is that? And the sister sees it and her eyes start to change. So that's a thing that you start seeing in this movie. Which is really cool. It is. I love that part. So you see this entity, whatever it is, and your eyes just have this weird just change that comes over them. And her sister immediately, like all these other people, start committing suicide. So her sister basically starts driving recklessly, and she drives them straight into a vehicle that flips their car over, and they both miraculously climb out. But as they're both climbing out, she sees her sister get up, take one last look at her, and then just get mowed over by a freaking dump truck or a garbage truck.
It's a garbage, and it's not that she just gets hit by it. She's standing there by the flipped over vehicle and kind of takes a look over her shoulder and takes a step back into traffic as the truck hits her. It is premeditated.
It's intended. Yeah, she's committing her suicide.
And let's just take a second to say that's Emma Paulson, who is a phenomenal actress. And I wish she had, or Sarah Paulson, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I wish she had more in the movie.
Yeah, I did like their relationship and stuff. We don't get it for very long. And Sandra Bullock specifically picked her, she wanted her to be her sister in this movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they had a really good dynamic in that. Even if it was short, you felt that relationship. And I feel like that kind of, I remember watching this for the first time and I got a little teary-eyed when she died, because I was like, that's very abrupt and emotional at that time. And then basically she gets out of the car and she just starts running. And everybody's just screaming and losing their minds, because then you see it through all these characters surrounding everybody. Individually, people are getting hit by whatever this entity is, and then they're starting to commit suicide. Well, up on this, I would say a little hill where a house sits, this woman sees her on the porch and she's like, I got to go help her. And so she runs down the hill to go help her. And the woman gets infected basically by this thing. And because she was trying to do this out of the goodness of her heart, and she ends up being sacrificed in a weird way. And she
comes running down to Sandra Bullock's character, and I believe John Malkovich's character said, like, this is when you meet him as well. He's like, no, we have to go inside. And she's like, she's pregnant. And so she goes out to save her. And when she's getting closer, she kind of looks and she just goes, Mom? And then from there, she walks and sits in a burning car. The car is burning and she just, no frills, no screams, just sits in a burning car as it engulfs her and then it explodes.
That made me so uncomfortable. Man, it was it was done really well.
Yep. And then a man comes and grabs her, which I think is Tom, right? So Tom grabs her off the ground and says, keep your eyes down. And then he helps her up the hill and they get to the house. And then John Malkovich's character, whose name is, I can't remember, I have it in my notes somewhere. He's just not happy right now because he's blaming her for his wife's death because the wife wanted to save her.
Which, and this is where one of my first, like, problems comes with, like, John Malkovich's character or whatever. I don't know if it's because how he's portraying it or whatever, but like we get it through this film that he's like a pretty eccentric person and stuff like that and everything, but you don't see any like emotional, like he literally just watched his wife sit in a car and burn to death, and there's no like outrage, like nothing more than just like a dirty look kind of thing. And I was just like, because I wasn't even aware, like at that point I was like, that was his wife's sister, like was it just a friend, like I don't know, like, so I was confused by that at that point.
Yeah, well, then she gets, they get in the house, Tom and her, and well, we find out it's Tom later, but, and then another person, I believe there's 3 of them that get in the house. At least that's what my note says. And then that's where John Malkovich's character is like, she went to help you, now she's gone. And he's like the guy toting the gun. And there's like a group of people basically standing in this really lavish house in the kitchen, and they're all trying to use their phones to call their family members, and they're just not working right. Like nobody's getting through anywhere.
All the towers are down.
Yeah, Mallory tries to call her mom, and they start talking about like what could be out there. The news is on, and they're just trying to figure this out because like everybody's freaking out. And I like this part because I feel like it's very realistic on what probably would happen if you were in this situation.
Yeah, like, and Malkovich thinks that it's like bio warfare and stuff, and he just keeps walking around with a shotgun, like posturing.
I did not like his character.
Not for
the majority of it.
Later on, I liked him a little bit when basically there's a scene between him and Sandra Bullock drinking in the kitchen later at night, and that was like I was like, okay, I came around to him a little bit, but I'm not a huge John Malkovich fan in general, so that kind of tainted his character as is. So I don't know if it was his acting style that made him this way, but
okay. Yeah, I was thinking it was like the direction, but I also can't think of a ton of stuff that I know he's a really popular actor, but I can't think of a lot that he's in. But it just seemed like like his acting, his character was just over dramatic and just kind of an asshole for the sake of being an asshole.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the point of his character overall, because like he's an attorney that lives next door and he's suing these guys. You find out he's suing this gay couple because they're building some glass monstrosity onto their house or whatever. And Sandra Bullock's character, this is like happens during this time period almost. And she was like, why do you care? And he's like, because I have to look at it. And like, it's just I think he just likes to create chaos, maybe. Well,
he's straight up like later on has a quote that like he definitely has that MAGA feel to him, because he says, let's make the apocalypse great again, like this kind of stuff. So he definitely is playing into that. All of that being said, I've seen that kind of character be played, and his just doesn't work for me in that. It just seems like John Malkovich being John Malkovich through the movie.
Okay.
It doesn't seem like I don't know, like, number one, he's not tore up when he sees his wife burn to death. So yeah, that's just me though.
Yeah. Well, and then as they're sitting here talking, they're talking about how you need to shut the windows and how if you look at it, it makes you kill yourself. And so they're just talking about that. And this one guy, the guy that's the clerk, he's like, this is the end game, and starts talking about mythology.
Charlie. Lil Rel.
Yeah. And then I put Guy asks, but I believe the guy here is Tom, asks Mallory, are you in any pain? Checking on her. And she ends up breaking down about her sister. And like they're in like this little hallway area. And she just finally kind of breaks from like the shock of everything and has her own like very small emotional moment, but it's enough to show that like she did care about her sister, that she isn't a robot. So, and then they kind of cuts to them, Mallory going to sleep in a bed, and a shadow passes over the window while she's sleeping. So it gives you like that eerie feeling. And then it cuts us back to the river.
So
with her and the kids.
Yep, we go back to present day, and it says that they are 6 hours on the river, and Sandra Bullock and the two kids are trying to sleep under completely covered under a blanket on the raft/boat. And Sandra Bullock wakes and starts to kind of call on the walkie-talkie, like, "Is there anyone there? Anyone there?" There's no answer. And you hear scratching sounds outside of the blanket. Like it's not scratching like nails on a chalkboard scratching. To me, it had more of like a digital screeching like sound to me, which I was like kind of like, oh, okay, this is a little different. Which I wish they would have leaned into some of that stuff more. There's like there definitely is a thing that they lean into, which is like floating leaves and stuff. But like, I feel like they could have done more with like eerie sounds and stuff like that. And maybe that's what Trent Reznor was talking about, that maybe they did, but they just mixed it way down so you didn't hear it as much, because that's where I could see like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross really doing some like neat sound design stuff that just kind of got buried.
Yeah, well, that's when the birds start making noise. So like between the sounds in this movie really are like wind and birds. Like if you're talking, and then the wind and the leaves together, because that's creating the motion. But that's what you're getting in this movie. Like you're not getting, and then you're getting shadow. Like you're not getting anything. And I personally like that we don't see the big bad in this movie. I love the anonymity of it, like in a sense of like it does this to you, but you don't get to see it, like unless you see it, and then you're done for.
I'm on the fence with it because I've seen it done in better ways. So that's my own, like, that's my thing with this movie, is there are certain things that's like, if I hadn't seen other movies, it's probably just like me being a huge horror fan makes this movie not as impactful for me, because if I hadn't seen the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake, that opening scene of like just chaos and stuff probably would have been more like, holy shit. But I've already kind of seen that stuff before, so I'm just like, okay, all right, we're doing this part again or whatever. But that movie's almost 20 years old. A lot of younger people specifically probably haven't seen that movie, so if they watch Bird Box, that might be their first time seeing something like that, and it might hit them a lot more.
I like the anonymity. It seems like the rules change throughout the movie. That's the part that bothers me more than anything, is like sometimes you know it's coming, other times it's just there in the environment. So if that was like hashed out a little bit better.
It also doesn't really explain the fact that they can kind of see through their blindfolds. Like they keep cutting to like their vision through the blindfolds, and they're kind of able to see. But that's enough coverage that it does. So it's like, is it something that like if they make eye contact with them, like if it was something like that, if you would like only see their eyes in the entire movie and like at one time in the film, and it's just like, oh, that's why, you could see their shape, but no, they even show later on seeing them through a camera, like it's just really, it's hard for me to be like, like buy into it when it doesn't feel like it makes sense.
It doesn't feel like the writers exactly knew which direction they wanted to go with it. Well,
and it's one of those things that Steph and I had talked about, where this is based on a book. and
So I wonder
everything.
what it's like in the
I
book.
wonder how much more it's fleshed out because you have a shit ton of characters in this movie and a lot of them don't feel like they're necessary. And it
Yeah.
makes you wonder how much of that was cut for time. But they could have cut certain characters out, like Machine Gun Kelly and the girl that
Yeah.
he's with, because
There's no point in them being in there.
there's no point in it other than that they take a vehicle. But I'll get to that later.
Yeah. So after we are done with Mallory's character in the boat, we jump back to 3 days since the events started. So now we're back at the house. And I have my notes say, do not go outside. Don't look at these things. And someone's banging on the door and a woman is crying. And Mallory picks up the shotgun and a guy opens the door and gives out a blindfold for the woman to cover her eyes so she can come inside. And everybody else inside's closing their eyes. So, we don't know exactly what's going on. So they're just making sure their eyes are closed. And Olivia comes in and she is pregnant. And so now we have 2 pregnant ladies in this mansion of a home. And they talk a little bit about, like, Olivia talks about how she's pregnant on October 1st, and she asks Mallory, when are you due? And she says the end of September. So we kind of have now a plot time frame on when this movie is. We also kind of know that based on the trees and the leaves and things like that. And Olivia starts talking about how her husband is deployed and how she's alone and how she basically ate all of her food, and then she went house to house to basically find some place to be. Yes.
I cannot stand this character. And I don't think you're supposed to. I feel bad not liking this character because she's not.
She's
bad.
so sweet. Yeah.
She's so sweet, but like in this situation and everything, it's just it is every man for themselves basically, and that's where like John Malkovich is like kind of right on a lot of this stuff because he's like, we only have so much food. Why are we bringing this person in? And then like, like then she's just like, I was so hungry and I ate all this food because I didn't want my baby to starve, which I fucking get. I get that, but I'm just like, why is this bitch in the house? God, no.
Yeah.
It legitimately made me feel bad for hating this character.
Well, I think what I like about this and all the characters, though, I understand what you're saying is like there's too many of them. You could cut out different plot points and all of that. But for the plot that they decided to use, every single character is used in a specific way in order to play its part. So, like, at least it's not some random person thrown in that's just sitting in the background that never gets any kind of information or ending or understanding of. You at least get a bit and piece of every single person that's in that house.
What's the old lady's name in this movie?
Well, I don't care about their name.
I know nothing about her.
I don't know either, but she does have her points.
I mean, anybody could have done what she did. Like,
And I think Olympia makes Mallory? Yeah, Sandra Bullock's character.
Olivia and Mallory, yes.
It's Olympia.
Is it Olympia?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Olivia. I have Olivia everywhere in here. Okay.
It's Olympia. But
Okay.
I think she softens Mallory's character a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I think that might be one of, obviously there's other parts, but like that part, it's like she's forcing softness onto Sandra Bullock.
I think her purpose in the film is to show Mallory what it is to be a mother and everything. I didn't think that through the movie until we're talking about it right this second, but I think that's her whole purpose as a character, other than like what happens later. But like even then, like anybody could have done that. But like her actual character is, I think, literally there just to try and soften Mallory up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another reason, but we'll get to that when we get there. But now we're at the part in the movie where they're talking about there's cameras around the house, and this house is all outfitted, and the guy that owns the home, his husband's not there, but he's there, and he decides that he wants to go up to this room in his house that you can see all the cameras, and some of it's infrared, but it's not directly, so it's indirect viewing of whatever might be out there, just to see if they can get out and get help or whatever, so they can maybe use this as like their safety net, which I like this part only because I feel like they're basically crossing off all of the possibilities in our minds, so we're not questioning whether or not this is a possibility.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a problem with it if they just never showed people looking through their blindfolds for the rest of the movie.
But you don't actually see anything through the blindfolds, it's just light.
I know, but they're alluding to the fact that if like later on in the film when people are surrounded by stuff and whatnot, you would have to see it, basically any little bit of it. And this kind of shows you don't even have to see them directly. Like you're seeing it through a camera, and it's, effective. So if they would have removed all, like, stylistically it makes sense, but like rule wise it doesn't make sense to me.
It makes sense to me.
Okay.
So, and then, so here we are, the guy goes and sits and he ties himself to wait a minute, does he go to do that yet? Yes. He ties himself to the chair. He's sitting there. He's waiting this out. Everybody else leaves the room because they don't want to be subjected to this if something goes sideways. Now they cut to Olivia taking a prenatal pill in the kitchen, which makes no fucking sense to me. It's like,
her name is Olympia, damn it.
Olympia. Okay, Mr. Allison.
Olympia. Oh, yeah.
Thomason, and then, no, but her name's Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Olympia. Okay.
There we go.
I'm just going to call, I'm going to fuck this up the whole time. You guys are just going to have to deal with it.
It's hard.
It is. But at least it's in the same realm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry. Thomason
Allison.
is not a name.
It's not a name.
it obviously is.
It's not my fault that the pregnant lady is named after a mountain.
Okay. So Olympia takes her prenatal vitamin in the kitchen, which that part I was like, what's the necessity of this? You could have cut that out of the film, but anyway.
Hey, she's pregnant, in case you couldn't tell.
I know. And then you have Craig, this is when I find out this is his name.
Who's Craig?
That's the guy that's tied to the chair upstairs.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not.
It's not Craig?
What?
The Jurassic Park guy.
Is it Greg?
It's Greg.
Okay, Greg. Okay.
I have the list of characters up.
I'm glad
right
you do,
here.
because you can correct me. Because they don't say anybody besides Mallory's name in this movie most of the time. It took me till the end of the film to realize that Tom's name was Tom. Like, we were on the last end of the movie, and I was like, what the fuck is his name? And Nick's like, I don't know. And I'm like, literally the last 20 minutes of the film, she says the name Tom. And I was like, that's his name. So in my notes, it's just like, dude.
Yeah, like that's my problem with them having so many characters.
Yeah.
And like they do try to make you care about these characters and have like these relationships, but like they don't, like, without doing just a big exposition dump of like, hey Bill, like, and stuff. But like, there's so many characters, you cannot be like, I'm not going to ding you for not knowing that it's Olympia and stuff like that. Like, because I thought her name was Olivia. I thought, like, I was just same thing. Dude, other dude, the guy
I feel
from
like
Get
Olympia's.
Out. That's what
I think all of the names are mentioned maybe once or twice, but Olympia's is pretty important. Greg, I wouldn't have known had I not looked at this. He was the guy from Law and Order.
He's the scientist in Jurassic Park that's there when the raptors are being born.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I knew him.
Yeah. So Greg, not Craig, with a G instead of a C. Okay.
Got it.
Because all I heard when them saying is Craig or Greg, whatever. And I was like, that's his name. So I wrote it down.
Don't worry. Tasha and I grew up with an Uncle Greg and an Uncle Craig. And it was probably up until today that I'm like, okay, wait, I know who Greg is.
Yeah.
And the worst part is they're both married to Becky's.
Yep.
So you can't even get like help there.
Yeah.
So
Mom was always helping us. Like, nope, it's the other one.
Nope, that's Craig. Nope, that's Greg.
Okay, so Greg in this, he sees a rustle of leaves, which then alludes to that, and the shadows, and his eyes start to go crazy, and he starts to go insane. And so that shows that, indirectly, even if you see them, this happens. And so they start hearing a bunch of noise downstairs. They run up to check on him, and he has fallen backward and hit his head on, I'm not exactly sure, a fireplace maybe?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
I think he's smashing his head on the desk initially, and then he flings himself back and kicks the desk over.
Well, he cracks his head on like a fireplace.
Yeah.
And then there's blood all over the floor, and Mallory's character sees all of this. And Douglas is like standing there, and he's like, I fucking told him that was a mistake. Like he's some big bad.
But not in this. I told him. It's literally, I told him it was a mistake. It's so much in this.
I was right.
I'm never wrong.
Yeah, it's that like snarky tone.
I get it, because I'm never wrong,
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll go
You're
with
hilarious.
That. Yes. And then this movie also cuts to them all the windows are now papered up in the house. Olympia goes to sleep in the room with Mallory. So they share a bed essentially. Mm-hmm. And they start talking about baby names and how Mallory is very uncomfortable talking and all of these questions. She just doesn't want to be there, essentially.
Yeah, she is not about this life at all.
No.
Yeah.
No. And she ends up hearing a noise, and so she leaves the room, and Mallory's character does, and she goes downstairs, and she finds Machine Gun Kelly and this other lady who is like a police officer or an officer in training.
She's
and they're
a cadet.
A cadet, yeah. And they're banging in the laundry room.
Yep, Machine Gun Belly is getting it on.
Yeah, which we find out his name like way later. Oh, Felix is his name apparently, and then Lucy, I believe, is her name. But I didn't find that out until like when their characters.
Asking.
Yeah. So I had no idea.
It's at this point that in my notes I just have, "Damn, this movie is slow."
It is so not.
At this
I don't
point,
think it is.
So what I'm talking about is from the point that I'm talking specifically where it just, I can see like he's tying himself up to the chair and stuff. You're like, well, we know, like, and this is a huge problem I have with this film because it kills all of its tension with all the flashbacking going forward and backwards. You don't see any of these characters, so you know everyone's going to die or whatever, you know? So this is all happening. I'm like, okay, so there's no tension and he's dead. So I'm just like waiting. I love all the stuff happening currently at the now. All the flashback stuff, I don't really care for.
I like the flashback stuff because then there's dialogue. If it was all 5 years in and she's on the river, it would be incredibly quiet, and I would have a huge problem with that.
I'm okay with that personally, but
I mean, Nick's right in the sense that, like, you know kind of what's going to happen a little bit because they start the movie in a way that kind of already sets you up for the future, then they're taking you to the past. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I like that because I like the tidbits of us building our plot and our understanding of where our characters have been to where they are now currently and what their motivations are. So I like that. Now, he is right. It takes away the suspense a little bit, but I don't think it does in the sense of like, you're still getting the suicides. You're still getting a lot of like the really heartfelt stuff that just made me feel really kind of sick to my stomach sometimes. So
I just think it makes them less impactful because you're not shocked by them. That's that's my are. I was not once. That's my problem. Is like every single time something happened, it's like, well, oh, okay. Like I knew that because we only see at the 5-year mark or whatever Sandra Bullock and 2 kids, so obviously she's alone for a reason.
Yeah, but you don't know what's leading up to that. Like you don't know that and you're learning it. That's what I like about it.
Mm-hmm. Likewise.
So we go back to the river. We're jumping back to our present time.
Yep, we're at 14 hours on the river.
Okay. And now she's sitting up with the kids. Their blindfolds are on and they're riding on the river and a man starts talking to them. Now this is the eerie part. And he tells them to take their blindfolds off. And he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. I can pull you to shore. Yeah,
he's like yelling from a distance. He's like, hey, it's okay. Take your blindfolds off. I've got food. Like, it's okay. Like, you know, all this stuff. Like, you're told prior to this, like, no matter what you hear, you know, if you hear anything, let me know. Don't say anything. Don't take your blindfolds off. Don't do anything. And then the first time you hear a voice on the river is, hey, why don't you take your blindfolds off? I got food. It's very like predatorial, like, why don't you get in the van feeling.
Yeah. And his voice is very much like that. And so he then comes up and he tries to take them out of the boat and he decides he's going to completely be a dick. And
before he even gets to the boat, he's talking like, come on, you know, like, why don't you just take them off? It's beautiful, and everything. And
I have to see this.
And Sandra Bullock is like just kind of blindly, like she's following the voice and just firing her gun in his direction.
And she then grabs her machete when he starts pulling her out, like trying to get them out of the boat. And she hits him with the machete.
In the neck.
Yeah. And It's kind of awesome because he doesn't die right away, and then she kind of gets away, and then he dies.
And his emotional stance on it does not change when he's hit. Like they start moving on, and he's just like, "It's okay, it's beautiful," and then he just kind of succumbs to his wounds and goes under the water.
Yep, It's super creepy.
Yeah, see, like I like that. I thought that was good because you don't see it coming. You don't know anything about what's going on. And it just kind of, oh shit, what's going to happen here?
Yeah. And then the next part, we jump back to our present or our past, and we're at the house. And now we're going to go get food from the supermarket. And Charlie tells them, because he works there, that he had locked it up before he had left for the day, and he went and locked it up or whatever, and that he knows that there's a supermarket there, and it's, there's no way anybody probably would have got in. That's what he says. And there's a garage attached to this house, so they start painting the windows and putting they're taping them up basically so they can't see when they're driving.
Yeah, they paint the windows, cover up the backup camera and everything, and it's like, car's got GPS, this is how we're going to get there. What?
What's your problem with that?
I legitimately watched our neighbor across the street, an elderly man, yesterday, back out of his driveway, overcorrect, hop the curb, and back into his grandson's car. This was without it being blacked out and everything. You're telling me you're just going to black everything out, get in this vehicle, and just... There's not going to be a shit ton of vehicles piled up like with how we've seen this. You're going to make it to this grocery store with just GPS.
Well, to them they are. And they use that like a sensor thing too.
Yeah.
That was cool. Like I thought that was an interesting way, but like just the idea of like this is what we're going to do to get there is the most asinine plan I think I've ever seen in a survival situation.
I think it's a great plan.
Yeah. I mean, they survive, so
it makes sense. Yeah. And then they even throw in like a couple bodies that they run over. Like it's not like it's
just a speed bump.
Yeah,
not
Tom's
this
just
easy
it's just a
path.
speed bump.
I'm not talking about the bodies. The bodies obviously aren't a big deal, but you're telling me that there aren't just going to be shit ton of vehicles all over the place blocking your passage. So when you're at, like, I'm just trying to think of like going from my house to Meyer. Okay. And
they're not going that far.
How far?
It was
like a block away.
A mile?
It was a mile.
Still a mile, right? How many cars could be like completely blocking the road? And in this situation, do I want to be left out there? No. So like, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
The only thing I don't like about it is that they brought 5 people with them. I thought that was too many people.
Yeah.
You want to fill your vehicle. You also don't want to sacrifice this many people just in case something goes wrong. You're allowing a pregnant lady to go with you. All of that stuff makes no sense.
Well, at that, she chooses to go because John Malkovich's character is going, which you seem to think that she doesn't want to be around him, but she literally says, well, if he's going, I'm going. And then Olympia.
Yeah, I didn't get that part.
She's going to go. And she's like, well, no. So she would rather be around John Malkovich's character than the other pregnant lady. I was very...
But that makes sense, though, for twofold. One, she doesn't like the emotional toll that she has to deal with when she deals with a pregnant lady. And number 2, she doesn't trust this motherfucker. So if she feels like she can keep an eye on him to make sure he's not going to do any shitty shit, and she can put him in his place, because she's pretty much the only person there that talks shit to him and puts him in his place, if you think about it.
I don't know. I don't buy it. Tom should have told her to keep her pregnant ass at home. Like, realistically, like, she shouldn't have went and Charlie shouldn't have went. Charlie was only there because he's like, well, I know where food's at. And even John Malkovich's character says...
He had the keys.
Well, yeah,
he didn't want to go either.
But but like he went because like he'd be helpful and everything. And John Malkovich's character says like, later on, it's like, oh, because we couldn't read the signs, this thing happens. And I'm just, go on.
So the cars has the sensors for proximity. Things are outside the car. They're blowing it, moving it. And so they're all like freaking out a little bit in the car. And then they finally get to the front of this supermarket, and they hit or like bump up against like a pole, and they go in blindfolded. Charlie unlocks the store.
And when they finally get there, John Malkovich's character does say a pretty funny line. And after all this, we're supposed to get out. Lucky us.
But he didn't have to go, but then he wanted to go. So like John Malkovich's character in this movie is so contradictory for so many things. It's like he's an asshole, but he doesn't really do anything besides just boast to be an asshole, but doesn't really.
It's a lot of grandstanding and posturing.
It is. He's all talk mostly. Like that's just his thing. And so she goes in, they go to load up on essentials. The store was locked up, and Nick made a point in, and he's like, well, wouldn't this already been looted? I'm like, all those motherfuckers are dead. They are not looting anything. Like
we don't know that.
Yeah.
Kind of with the amount of bodies you're seeing, the amount of catastrophic killings and murder and whatever is.
We're not led to believe anything that there aren't other houses with people in it, because people do keep showing up from here and there and all this stuff. I just think that like at the word go when shit's hitting the fan, although like we've seen this in real life when things go sideways, those are the first places that things are getting thrown through the windows and they are fucking looted. So it's like, nope, everything's fine. I'm just like, we're days in and nobody's touched this place.
Because it was locked.
Yeah. Whole front is glass.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I thought was weird about that is that if hypothetically, okay, so say people were going in and they were going to go loot the place. Say they didn't break in, or even if they were trying to get there, and you would have a lot more bodies that they would be climbing out over to go into the place, because they would have committed suicide, and there would have been blood all over the outside of the store. There's none
inside the store.
People aren't jumping out the windows, stabbing themselves in the glass. There's none of that. It's pristine clean.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
That in itself is weird. I understand the loot. For me, the looting thing makes sense in the sense, like, if they're trying to get there, they just die, every single one. Like, it's just kind of going on, because you know that thing has been there. We find that out later on. But so they're going through and they're loading up on essentials in this. They each have a cart. They're filling up on shit. And the guy, Tom, is flirting with Mallory's character, and they're talking about how they grew up a couple cities away and how she could have been his babysitter because she's older than him, and he's he's literally, I believe I said that this is a model that would be on the cover of like a Harlequin novel. He is there specifically to be eye candy and stuff. He's a very attractive guy. He doesn't do a bad job in acting, but this dude is there to like get the ladies like, ooh yeah, Tom. Well, he's like former military, we find out.
Paramilitary.
There you go. And he is a very attractive guy. And so he is also a very big family man. He talks about that a lot in this. And so that is kind of like counterintuitive to like what her personality is and stuff. He's definitely the more loving, caring person in this. And she's the more shut down.
I don't know. John Malkovich is a pretty big family man too. He does have 3 wives throughout his life. He also gets his booze on instantly when he gets in here.
You want to know who else has had 3 wives in their lives? Raise your hand.
We've both had 3 spouses, and we are our 3rd spouse.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
3rd time's the charm. He says it even. 3rd time's the charm. And God damn it, Sandra Bullock done fucked that up for me.
Okay, so they're going through we're going through the supermarket, and she finds birds, and she decides to take them back with her. And Douglas.
Yeah, they're 3 parakeets.
Yes, and Douglas decides to get drunk in the supermarket.
Hell yeah, I would be doing that right up. Like, I'm just like, we're going to die. Like, this is a bad move. We're gonna live here.
And, yeah, that's what he says. He's like, we're gonna live here. He's like, why don't we not go back?
And it makes 100% sense. I thought the same thing. Like, in Sandra Bullock's reasoning is like, because we're not assholes. In this situation,
you owe nothing to nobody.
No, fucking stay here. Nobody You know, no one's looted this place. He says, like, there are years of supplies here. There is no reason whatsoever for us to fucking leave. And he's 100% right. Other than the fact that it is a glass front, but it's made it this far, and if everyone's fucking dead, there's no reason we can just hang out here forever.
Yep. So then we start hearing knocking on the back door of this place, the loading dock, and somebody's banging, saying, "Just let me in." It's like this kind of like sad male voice, and the guy, what is it, Charlie? Is that his name? He's like, "Is that fish fingers?" And what a name.
I want the backstory of how he got this nickname.
Yeah.
Is it an innocent nickname or is it not an innocent nickname? Is this something that, no, I'm not going to go any further on that.
No, he works in like the food. He works with the fish. I think that's why his name is Fish Fingers.
He wasn't telling people to smell his fingers?
No, I don't think so. And so Charlie's character is explaining that this guy's a little bit crazy and he's been to prison. And then the Fish Fingers is talking through the door. "They tricked me and they left me here." And the birds start to go wild at the sound of this guy's voice. And they decide, Tom, I think, is the one that decides they're going to let this guy in the building. Is that who was the one that opened the door?
I believe so.
Yeah.
At this time, like, I'm still not familiar with everybody's names watching the film. I'm just like, that guy and that guy.
Tom is the eye candy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, like I can't remember exactly who's opening it. I do remember that John Malkovich is just like, don't fucking do it.
This is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Stop opening the door for fucking people.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was Charlie because he was like, "I know this guy."
I know Charlie was tucked back.
Yeah, he didn't, because so Tom opens the door and then the guy starts coming through and he starts shoving Tom out of the way, and Charlie's like, they realize something's wrong, and Charlie's like, "Fuck this," and he like basically tackles the dude into the whatever,
the loading dock.
Yeah. And then you hear a couple noises and then you see Charlie's blood kind of come out from under the door.
Well, I thought that this was done pretty well, because this is actually pretty creepy. He dives and knocks the guy back out the door, and they shut the door behind him. And you hear like a little scuffle, and then you hear Fish Finger's voice say, "Just look, isn't it beautiful?" And then you hear wet, like, stabbing noises, and you see under the door that they just shut, blood come out. I thought that was well done.
I like that. I liked it also because it was like I felt bad for Charlie's character in this because they just keep using him.
Then
they also talk down to him a lot because he was talking about like mythology, and they're like, "Did you go to school for that?" And he was like, "No, I just read on Google." And they like basically snubbed that, like, as if you can't read and educate yourself. And then he's like, "I'm writing a book," and he was talking about what he was writing. And then again, they were just kind of like blowing it off like he doesn't matter. And then they talk him into going to this thing by saying, "Well, just think about it. It'll be good for your book." And I'm just like, not if you die, motherfucker.
Well, because like that's something that I wish they would have expanded it a little bit upon, considering they have his character in this, is when he starts talking about all the different religions and how these different religions have these different demons and all these different entities about like these creatures during Armageddon and the end times and stuff. When that's happening, we just follow Sandra Bullock's character walk away, and his sound gets like mushed out into another room and stuff. And it's like, that's the interesting stuff that would explain some stuff, but instead we're just going to follow Sandra Bullock's character, and
well, that's what happens.
Spend all this time with these characters and we don't get explanations.
I know. And then so after Charlie goes bye-bye, Douglas says, "How is that guy alive?" And then they return with the goods. Like,
doesn't the guy keep talking? Like, doesn't he go back to the door? I think that part's really creepy and cool, where like he's like back to being bait.
Yeah. Yep. And he's saying the same thing he said, "Just let me in. They tricked me," or whatever. Help.
Yeah, and we don't get a full like trip back. It literally just cuts to them.
And then the
home.
woman comes out. We don't even know her name, at least not at this point. I don't. And she asks where Charlie is, and our lovely guy Douglas says, "Another novel I won't have to read."
Is Douglas John Malkovich's character?
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
And then Sandra Bullock is like, "He saved us, you asshole."
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of good dialogue in this with just their shit talking.
Like
All
back
of my
and forth.
favorite quotes from this movie come from John Malkovich's character.
I'm sure
Not
they
shocked.
do. Yeah.
I'm not saying that I like him, but everybody else's dialogue to me is kind of whatever. And his is like well shot. Like it makes sense into his character. Everybody else is like, knock it off. Let's do this thing. And he's just like playing a shitball.
And then there's Machine Gun Kelly's line. It's just like fucking fuck, and that's all he really says. Over and over again. We're so fucking fucked.
We're so fucking
That's what
fucked.
it was.
We're so fucking fucked. Just like,
We get it.
Good God.
One time is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, we're gonna say it a few
So
times.
in the house, this is when we kind of get Douglas and Sandra Bullock's character Mallory in the kitchen, and this is, I think, one of your favorite parts, Nick.
This is the only scene in the past that I like, other than her, Sandra Bullock and her sister. I like all that, but at the house, this is the only scene that I like from all the flashbacks.
Yeah, and
stuff.
so they're standing in the kitchen. You can kind of carry this on after I get over this. John Malkovich's character says there's two kinds of people in this world: assholes and the dead. And then they start talking and drinking.
And he's talking about like that his third wife is the one that had passed away, and that his first wife said that she couldn't call me a creep because that would be an affront to creeps. And my second wife said she no longer feared hell because it couldn't be worse than being married to me. And like, those are great. Like I loved that.
The
like,
winner.
Like he's like, yeah, like you probably think I'm an asshole. This is what my previous wives thought. But then he talks about his third wife and it's like, but she was a real one. She was a great woman and all this stuff. And you get like, it's the dialogue is written is very heartfelt. His portrayal of it though, like you don't see this like emotional, like, you know, like you feel like he'd kind of be breaking up a little bit or something, like, you know, but you don't get that. And it kind of plays him off as like this eccentric kind of character, but then other things don't. It's kind of disconnecting for me, but I did like that. And he like pours her a drink and she's like, no, like I'm pregnant or whatever. And he's like, you know, what's a little bit of whiskey, you know, if anything, like you survive long enough and get to have the baby, you know. And she's kind of like, you know, well, here's to another drink in the future possibly, which is I think like that right there, that little back and forth between those two like Hollywood like elite actors and stuff was good. I really did like the back and forth in that scene.
I did too, and she was talking a lot about her backstory too, about her parents and her dad and how he reminded her of her dad, other than the jab where it was like, well, except the hair, and he was like, why? And she was like, well, because you're bald, and she was just like teasing him about not having any hair.
Yeah, and this is where you kind of start to get, like I said, like Douglas has a character arc, so he's just a shitty character. And then at this, we see him kind of open up a little bit, and he's coming around like, okay, you're understand, like, yeah, he's a shitty like asshole guy, but he means well, and he just seems like he has shitty people skills, is how it seems. He's a very rational person, overly rational.
Yeah, I would say, well, logical.
Yes, logical. Very like cold, calculated person.
Yeah, like don't let this person in because they could be a problem. Don't do this because this is the situation. And honestly, he's very on point with most of that stuff. Like he is very honest and very forward about it. And if they had listened to him in a lot of cases, a lot of the situations wouldn't have happened the way they did. But he also isn't necessarily the person you want to listen to because he's such a douchebag.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to have a drink with this guy, but like in this situation, if I were in the end times and stuff, this is 100% the person that I would be like, you know what? Yes, this makes sense. Let's do this. Like,
it's like you listen to him and then you let Tom in the storyline do all the stuff because he's the one that's actually capable.
He keeps letting people in and keeps opening doors at supermarkets and flirts with pregnant ladies.
But he's the one that drove, and he's the one that's gotten them in certain situations. So, like, he knows what he's doing in that sense. Like, I don't think Douglas's character in this movie kind of necessarily knows what to do. He just knows what the logical thing to do is. So anyway, now we're done. Sandra takes her sip of whiskey, and then Machine Gun Kelly, this is all I have in my notes, Machine Gun Kelly and the police lady steal the car and leave, which is Lucy and Felix, and there's no fucking reason.
No explanation why. So I have this in my notes right at the head. Like, this is the first time I've actually taken just outside notes watching a movie for things that I wanted to bring up. So this film is a little over 2 hours long, and I think that you could have made this movie an hour and a half long, and it would have hit better. It would have cut out some characters, and the three main characters I think you could have cut out of this are Machine Gun Kelly. What's the girl cop's name?
Lucy.
And I think you could have cut Charlie out. Now, hear me out. This is why. I think that you could have taken the entire food run thing out. So then you don't even need the vehicle. So then you don't even need Charlie and the two people that steal the vehicle, and you cut that whole part out. You don't have to show them going and scavenging for food and stuff like that, because they spend so much time trying to get you to connect with certain characters. You could cut that scene out, cut those three characters out, and I think like little bits could have made a little more sense, and you could have streamlined it and it would have been tighter.
What do you think, Tasha?
It's kind of like what we talked about before about him watching the thing on the video. It gives you that other part of, they're going to run out of food. How do they find food? So I think for that component, I think it needs to be in there, because just like any post-apocalyptic movie, there's always a food run.
But they want to explain the food run for like 20 minutes, but they don't want to give us all the ins and outs of like how things are working or any. Like, that's what I'm saying is like they spend all this time on having a vehicle, getting the vehicle to here, all this stuff. But like at the end of the day, it's just like, oh, that was a huge chunk of the movie that.
But I think you're expecting that these unreliable narrators to tell you what's going on when they don't know themselves.
I get that.
You want the answers when they don't have the answers.
Well, I get that. Like, but what I'm saying is, we're talking about making a movie. You're going to spend a quarter of your movie with this stuff that if you actually removed it, does not matter. It doesn't change the narrative of the film.
You're right. It does give you. I'm torn about Charlie because I like him.
Don't get me wrong. I like his character. It's just not necessary.
He's another one that I wonder if he has a bigger role in the book.
100%.
Like if he's the one that gives you the backstory of what could possibly be happening, like you said earlier.
Yeah,
and I think because
that's the big thing.
Yeah, and I think because he is kind of the outcast, they're picking on him. I think he has like a really heroic death that
I think this story would have been better suited as a television series than a movie.
I agree with that.
Well, I totally agree with that. So yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of books are better that way because you miss out on so many details.
Yeah, because
when they put it in a movie,
there's so much character development in this book, and you can tell that they kept a lot of these characters, but they didn't develop them.
Yeah, I can't think of one movie that I prefer over the book.
Fight Club.
I haven't read Fight Club.
That's it.
Well, I have read a couple books that were a link to the movies, and I've liked them both in their own separate entities, but I don't necessarily think in a lot of cases that the movie's better. Like this is very nerdy, I know this, but I love the Twilight series movies, and I read all the books. They're not the same, but they're very similar. Mm-hmm. But I don't go, wow, I didn't like that because the book was better. I actually think that they are both good in their own separates, but most of the time, yeah, the book is always almost better.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like that with Harry Potter. I like the Harry Potter movies, but I'll always prefer the book. And then there are some other things that are just like The Road is something that I kind of keep hearkening back to with this movie. I love the book. I don't care for the movie.
See, I've never read the book. I like the movie a lot, though.
Yeah, so I wonder if I read the book first, if this would be a book that's in my like genre. Yeah, if that makes sense.
See, mine, like I've you guys talk about like Twilight and liking them for their things. You're talking about Harry Potter. Mine's the Bible. Yeah, like the Bible does. Yeah, Jesus. Sure Jesus indeed. Jesus indeed. Like, you know. No.
Okay. That was better?
No. Good try, honey.
All right.
Anyway.
So we're back to 24 hours later on the river.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they are currently...
They're a few hours from their destination. and the boat bumps a truck and the boy falls out. And I literally at this point audibly just went, oh fuck.
Yeah.
Because again, all of this stuff is way more interesting to me, and I'm having reactions to this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they lose the food and their blankets, and they need that in order to have like their meetings and obviously to survive. So that was kind of a moment.
She then takes the boat to shore, and in a stern way just is like, do not leave this boat. And Sandra Bullock, I thought this was pretty genius. I liked this a lot. She had like a reel on her belt, and she used that to tie to the boat, and then she's going off into this forest because she hears wooden wind chimes, and she begins to follow the sound. She ends up getting to the end of her rope, and that's inside of this like almost barracksy kind of building.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like.
And
or like a camp or something, maybe.
Yeah. And I'm just at this point, I'm like, is she here looking for people or something? And then it turns out she's actually gathering up old blankets and stuff here to start making her way back. And it's at this time that we cut back to the kids have gotten out from under the blankets.
And the girl is standing up in the boat with the birds.
And I'm just going, these fucking kids, god damn it.
Yeah.
And something passes outside the door where Mallory's character is, and it kind of knocks her reel off this bed, and then
it catches the rope and pulls a bunk into the door.
Yeah.
So it's dragging her rope a bit. And I was just like, oh, fuck.
But the noise of that, because of how like you're watching it, and then it's also screeching across the floor, and my arms are getting like goosebumps when I was watching this movie, because I was just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And like, what's gonna happen?
I thought that the rope was cut.
Oh.
I thought something had happened to that. It was pulled and snapped, and there wasn't a way for her to get back.
Oh, that's
where my head went.
That would have been really good, which we kind of get that kind of feel later on in the film. But at that moment, I like that.
Yeah, and then so the little girl then ties a rope around her waist to leave the boat with her blindfold on to go find Mallory, because she hears something and she's like, Mallory's not okay, or something like that. Yeah. And she gets out, and then you see her get swept up. And it's Mallory coming back to them, and she's like very pissed that they have gotten out of this boat, that they did not listen to her. And she's like, what do I tell you? When anything this happens, you save yourself. Like, she is very
I think she even refers to her as like stupid girl. Like, it's just like,
that was stupid.
Yeah. If you think that something's going wrong with me, you cut and run. You leave me. Like, do not come. I'm already dead then. Like,
I'm already getting chills. So like in that, when you're talking about like from a mom's standpoint, I totally understand that. It would just be like when Wyatt was younger, we were uptown, and I don't know what happened. He ran out into the road on a busy street. And the first thing I did when I grabbed him, I yelled at him like that. Like, you get, like, I mean, as a parent, you get very, very stern in those situations. So this is just heightened so much.
Yeah, that's why I think all of her stuff is relatable in this instance, because of that. It's like, yeah, you're going to tell them, if you do not listen to me, you are going to die. And I don't want you to die. So you better fucking listen to me.
Yeah. Now come here and give me a hug. That's the part that was missed.
Yes. Yes.
But the look on the little girl's face at that point just broke me. I was so sad for her.
I then have in my notes, 5 years ago, again, boo. Like, literally, while watching this film, I'm like, all right, cool, we're back at this time. And then it's like, back to the house, and I was like, God damn it.
Well, it's like a really quick blip in this one. This one was kind of weird, because it was like, we get them, it's Tom and Mallory's characters. They're like sitting in the living room. They're talking about him being deployed. So you kind of learn about his backstory at this point. And he just starts about his family and maybe his sister in this one. I know we talked about it in the supermarket.
So.
It's mostly just an exposition dump flashback.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is Tom's backstory, and then we come back. Like, that's it. Yeah. It's like,
well, and then she does take a step that you don't see her do up until this point, and she is opening up to this character, is that she takes his hand because she's feeling for him and his story, and she places it on her belly.
Oh, yeah.
And so he can feel the baby, because he's telling the story about when he was in the military. There was this guy that would take his kids to school every single day, and they would follow him or whatever. And he was talking about why I'm thinking about, like, I'm hoping this guy's still taking his kid to and from school, and like what their conditions were when they were there. And there's like this like very sweet component to that.
Yeah, this part of the movie is real. It was hard to take notes because we get this 5 years ago, exposition dump. Then we jump to 28 hours on the river. Cuts to her just going, "Can anybody hear me?" on the walkie-talkie. Back to 5 years later. I'm just like, what the fuck? The editing in this film with like how it makes sense if it were a little sparser, but they just like are like now and over here, and now over here, now over here, and it's just like it doesn't.
But they cut it cleanly in the sense that you know where you're at, so you're not questioning where you're at. One
is Sandra Bullock with a fucking thing over her eyes with two kids on a boat. The rest is in a house.
Yeah, but the thing is, this one, when it goes from 28 hours on the river and then she's trying to talk to somebody and nobody replies, it jumps to her on a same type of thing in a house trying to get somebody to talk to her.
But is it not like this is what I'm talking about though? So we jump back, like, so it's the exposition dump to nowadays to back to that. Why couldn't we just take that exposition dump and just tie it into this other time that we come back? Like, it's a lot of that, like, we're just jumping. And it's like, you don't have to jump every single other line because it feels like that at this point in the movie. Like,
but I wonder if it's in a book like that.
It could be. It doesn't mean you have to follow it like exactly.
Yeah.
It felt like, oh God, we're here. Oh, now we're back. Oh, now we're here. It just felt like that, very jumbled. But yeah, we get the walkie-talkie stuff, and 5 years ago, again, pregnant lady lets dude in the house out of nowhere in.
Yeah. Mr. Gary.
That was a bad idea.
Yeah, so basically Gary doesn't break in the house. Olympia lets Gary in because he's banging on the door, and I think it was in the middle of the night.
Yes, and everyone's sleeping when this happens.
Yeah, and so he comes in, and then they're like holding guns on him and stuff.
Well, yeah, because he comes in out like he is in the house before everyone gets there. Like, she lets him in, and that's when people are like waking up. It's like, wait, what the fuck's going on? And she's like, well, I remember what it was like to be scared and all this stuff. And I'm just like, Olympia, you dumb bitch, you're going to get your baby killed. Like, not just all these people. You are going to get killed being this fucking stupid.
Kind of, like, yes. Yeah, and then he tells us the story of like why he's there. And I love that. I don't know why. I just really love that story. He was just like, I'm out of town with my coworkers and we were in this house. And then these bunch of psychos from this mental institution broke in and they made us go outside and they forced us to look at these creatures. And they're like, you didn't have to look. And he's like, my coworker, my boss or whatever, he tackled him to the ground. So I didn't have to. And it was like this very like, I love this guy who's the actor Gary in this because like I said earlier in the episode, he is from Pride and Prejudice and he plays a very cringy character in that. So I like him. Like, he's kind of sinister in this.
I have a huge problem with this, though, considering every time we see these kind of characters in the film, anytime either side sees this, their eyes change. Yeah. This motherfucker's eyes aren't changed at all.
In this moment, they're not.
Correct.
But
you
why?
Can't see them. You can't see them.
I don't understand that.
He's looking right at them the whole time when he's talking and stuff. There is no reason because we later see them change. It doesn't make unless he this still doesn't make sense. Unless his eyes change because he looks at the drawings that he already fucking drew.
Yeah, there is a bit of a hole there, I would say.
But I'm trying to think if there really is, or if it's just like it happens when you see them. But if you're the psycho like this guy is, that your eyes can go back to normal because you've already seen it.
That's bullshit. Then that is so bullshit to me.
Because are the people later on also kind of psychotic, or are they?
And every time you see them, their eyes are fucked. And like even like normal people, when they see them, their eyes get all fucked up. It's like it's nonstop. They use that later on. Like when you see them, their eyes are fucking all jacked up and everything. But for some reason, when he comes in, he looks normal.
Yeah,
and
it makes me feel like they only do that just so you
don't think he's a bad guy. It doesn't make
work.
sense there.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back and watch that scene, and I want to know, like, I'm going to do this on my own, just for my own homework, because I want to go back and I want to see, because this is at nighttime. He's standing in a hallway. He's not under like dim lights. He's kneeling on the ground. Like, we don't get a lot of like direct vision into his eyes. Like, they spend a lot of time when these scenes happen. You get to visually see the eyes change. I'm wondering if there is some kind of change, but we're not noticing it because they're not focusing on it. So I'm curious if that's something that we're missing or not.
We also don't know if he's the one that drew the pictures. He had the book of them, but
He begins to draw them.
after he looks at them,
Okay. If that's the thing.
it's dicey. I'm not saying it's
if that's how it works, I guess I'll buy it, but it's not to me, as portrayed in the film, it does not work. If the reason for it is supposed to be he wasn't changed until he saw these photos that weren't his and all this stuff, but he's already like putting on the music and being all fucking weird and stuff, and then displays these photos, the motherfucker to me has already been changed. Like if the purpose was that he wasn't, and then that's when he changes, it didn't convey that to me.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Like I said, I'd have to look at the eyes, and maybe we're just missing something, or maybe they just completely fucked up that storyline. Like, I don't know. But that is a good point. But yeah, he comes in and Douglas pulls out the gun on him and is like, he doesn't want them in this house. And rightfully so. Like, this lady just fucking lets him in the middle of the night after they've already seen like the psycho dude fucking kill Charlie. Like, they know this happens. And so the old lady ends up hitting Douglas over the back of the head with a pot. And he basically goes down, and they lock his ass in the garage because the car is missing now. And, he's still safe in there, but it's to keep him away from everybody because he's now supposedly a danger.
He hasn't done anything wrong. To put him out there, like, they knock him out and drag him out to the garage. These people are letting possible problems in. They get away scot-free. This guy is just trying to keep everyone safe, and they fucking throw him in the garage.
Yeah, I didn't like that he went to the garage. I was hoping that Gary would go to the garage.
And it's portrayed that Tom's this hero guy and like takes him out. It's like, you just sleep out here. Why? He's trying to save everybody. It's not like he's shooting the gun at people or something like that.
I think this is the difference between kill or be killed. Like, it's the concept of like, everybody else has this empathy for all these people, like the Olympia character did, and then you have the realist, and the realist is like, don't you fucking do this shit. And then you have the people who are just like living in La La Land that are like, oh, everybody's our friend, and we're just going to be so nice and loving and help and just take care of them. And then you see what fucking happens.
See, this is where being a misanthrope makes you a survivalist, because it's like, fuck these people. They're all like, unless it's like connected to me somehow, you're not coming fucking in here. You better be bursting through the windows to get in here, because otherwise, I'm sorry. I know it makes me heartless. You're going to sit out there and die, because I can't jeopardize the safety of these people. And these people keep jeopardizing the safety of everyone around them. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and then this is when we got Olympia sitting on a bed after this, and they're just sitting there, and she's talking to Mallory's character about how she is self-proclaimed spoiled, and everybody's taking care of everything for her, and she's soft. And we already know this, so I don't know why they're explaining this to us, because we've already kind of gathered this as characters. And she then turns to her Mallory's character, and this is my least favorite part of the movie. Yes. She says, if something happens to me, I want you to take care of my baby. And I'm just like, stop fucking foreshadowing shit.
And also, why would you tell the pregnant woman who already has to take care of her own child to then take care of another child? At least spread the wealth.
Hate this character. I think it's at this point I have in my notes in all caps, I want all these people to die already.
Well, it's just like, why one, yeah, I didn't even think about that, Tasha. Like,
Yeah.
why would you just be like, hey, you're gonna be taking care of a baby in the middle of the end of the world, and why don't you take
Yeah.
care of mine too? And it's
You
like,
obviously have motherly tendencies.
Right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that happens. And then Mallory has gotten her this little Hello Kitty plushy keychain from the store and puts it in a little bag and gives it to her. And that was probably another character pop for me, for her, because like we got the sister part and then the belly touching part. And so we're kind of seeing a little bit more of her humanity, I guess, as a character, where she recognizes that this girl is very soft and this is just not meant for her. Yeah. And in this movie, Mallory comes out and is basically like, I was raised by wolves. Essentially, she says that. So like, she does say that in the movie. So like this poor girl, she's trying to empathize and be caring in her own weird way. And it pays off for me in that scene for that. But then Olympia hugs her. And then we're back on the river, 38 hours on.
Yep, and Mallory tells the kids that they are about to hit the rapids, and basically lays it on them that one of the kids is going to have to look to be able to direct her where to turn. So one of the kids is going to have to unveil their eyes so they can see what's coming up. And I believe it's at this point the girl says that she'll do it.
Boy does it first.
Oh, Boy does say it first?
And that's when she was...
In that scene or in the next scene? Because this happens twice in the movie.
That's when I figured out who was whose child. Was Boy says, I'll do it. And she goes, no, I'll decide.
Yeah, because it definitely sets up a Sophie's choice kind of thing of it's alluding to the fact, in kind of a red herring way, but it alludes to the fact that she is going to have to choose which one of these kids is going to die to save the others.
Yeah, because she says, if I look, I won't make it. And so she's trying to have to decide which child to pick or whatever. And this scene got me teary-eyed. And then the scene where they go through the rapids, which is a little bit later on, I was full on crying. And I've seen this movie 5 times and I'm still crying.
Now,
I cried so much.
You did? I just kept going.
Tore me apart.
I just kept getting mad. I'm like, why aren't you listening to Douglas? He clearly, God damn it! Haven't you guys watched The Walking Dead or like? It's about survival. You should be trying to survive, and it seems like these people just want to fucking die until it's too late.
Yeah.
None of the like past stuff made me sad. It's all of the on the river.
It's all the river stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted Sandra Bullock and John Malkovich to live happily ever after together. That would have made this film a lot better for me.
Right.
So now after all this goes on, we jump back into the past, Nick's favorite.
God.
And the song "Say a Little Prayer for You" is playing, and they're dancing in the kitchen, cooking. And Olympia goes into labor, and they're taking her, and they're getting blankets and stuff ready to go deliver her baby. And then Mallory, standing in the kitchen, getting the bucket of water or whatever they need, and her water breaks, and she kind of trails like a whole bunch of water all over the floor in the kitchen.
Slip hazard.
Yep.
And it looks like she was already going through labor like before too, where she's just like quietly dealing with it while Olympia is just like, it's happening, and like being the big like to do, and Sandra Bullock is just like, I have to just deal with this.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's it's at this point that I'm just like, well, all this stuff's kind of going on, and the camera cuts to the new guy. What's his name?
Gary.
It cuts to Gary, and he's like putting a record on, and I'm literally going like, I think this guy might be fucked up, and then it instantly is just like, this guy's fucked up.
Yep. So he's putting on classical music, and then he brings out this art folder thing, and then it's like all this demonic
it's all charcoal drawings of like Lovecraftian horrors. It's just like disembodied eyes and teeth and claws
Shadows,
and stuff, which I think's kind of cool. And I wish they would have kind of leaned into like given us a little something, but we get nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then this is actually realistically, this whole scene from, I would say, the kitchen scene all the way to the end of this is probably one of my most favorite scenes in the movie because it is so intense and it is really cool how it plays out, in my opinion. So Mallory. Go ahead.
I would say that this is like when the third act starts. Everything has been set in motion, and this is where, like, so labor happens, and from labor on is we are in the ramp up to the climax to resolve the film.
Yeah, I would say so. And so Mallory has a baby first because her water had broken, and she was actually due before Olympia was too. So she has a boy, and then Olympia's on the floor basically having her baby. And Gary takes the birds during this time and puts them in the freezer and starts to open all the windows in the house, like taking everything down.
So calmly.
All while John Malkovich is like, what the fuck are you doing? Because he's locked in the garage, but he can see him. He's like, what the fuck? What are you doing with those birds and stuff like that? And realistically, Malkovich could have just broke open that glass and unlocked the door. Like, seeing that.
I think he eventually does. We just don't see it on camera because he gets out somehow and we don't see that.
That's because Gary opens the garage door on him and you hear the shit in the distance.
That's right. So at this point now, Tom is addressing or seeing all this stuff or whatever's going on, and Gary hits him over the back of the head with a can. And then Gary, that's when we see Gary's messed up eyes. That's when we legitimately get that zeroed in on. And then he opens the garage door on Douglas's character. And the woman is kneeling next in the next scene. She's kneeling there with the scissors, helping Olympia deliver her baby, cutting the umbilical cord with the scissors.
So the scissors have entered the chat. These scissors are being used for the to cut. There might need to be an episiotomy done with some kitchen shears. Like, there's a reason. Like cutting the umbilical cord, cutting like all of these things. They're using what they have at the ready.
Yep. And so Gary gets to the top of the stairs. This scene is so fucking creepy. So he's like, hello, you look so beautiful. And he's talking to these women who just had babies. And Sandra Bullock's character says, what's going on downstairs? And Gary wants to see the babies. He doesn't answer her.
He just, let me see yours. Ah, yes, so beautiful. Let me see your baby. Walks over, looks at him. Ah, yes, so beautiful.
And then he goes and opens the motherfucking windows. And I'm just like, I cannot believe this is happening. The first time I saw this movie, I was just like gasping at this. And then I love this scene so much. It's so fucked up. But, and then Olympia, she looks.
Well, when he's ripping the stuff off the windows and opening them, he's just like, show this to the babies. Look at this. Show this. Show the babies. You know?
Yep. It's so fucked up. And so Olympia, she sees, and you watch her eyes change again. And this part did make me cry. This was the only part in the flashbacks that actually really, really got me in the sense of like emotionally. She starts to go and jump out the window and takes her baby with her. And Mallory gets up on her knees, not facing the window, and is begging her to give her baby. Just let me hold her for a second. Just let me hold her. Just let me hold her. And she finally like looks at her with her eyes all fucked up, hands over her baby, and then just proceeds to swan dive out of the fucking window. And I was just like,
she says they're not so bad. Like when she sees them and her eyes are changing, that's her quote. Is she just goes, they're not so bad, and then just yeets herself out the window. But it's only 2 stories. Like, I don't know.
Could have lived,
I guess. And then Gary then takes the older woman that I don't even know her name really.
I think it's Cheryl.
Okay, well that lady,
the blonde,
the older lady,
blonde hair. Yeah, I think it's Cheryl.
Yeah, she. Gary then gets behind her and she's squeezing her eyes shut really, really tight. And Gary gets behind her and starts prying her eyes open. And then she sees, and then she takes those scissors that she used in order to cut the umbilical cord and stabs herself in the side of the neck.
Yep. Repeatedly.
Yes.
Yeah. Hereditary.
And the sound design on this was pretty good. Like it's not like that you hear a lot with stabbings. It's wet and it's like, you can hear it like getting in there. And it's pretty gross.
It was. And then he's just standing there loving all of this. And Douglas has now gotten free and gotten in the house. And he has a shotgun, but his eyes are closed. And he comes to save them, which this is where his story arc kind of like
Well,
hits.
not yet, because we cut to Sandra Bullock under the blanket with the two babies, and Gary, is that his name? The bad
Yes.
guy.
Yeah.
Gary is just like, give me, in this weird, like, creepy way. He's like, give me the kids, or I will take them. Like, because he's going to show these kids the thing and kill these kids.
Yep. It's
That's-
super creepy.
That's when Malkovich re-enters the chat with his shotgun.
Yep. And he shoots Gary on the shoulder, but without looking. He just like fucking unloads him and gets him in the shoulder. And Gary's pissed off because he fucking shot him in the shoulder.
Yeah, right.
Deservedly so.
Yeah. And he tackles Douglas over like this, like there's like this
Through.
wall of like
Through a
stairs.
banister.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it is. And they fall to the first floor and with the scissors, and he impales them in Douglas's chest.
Yeah, so they fall to the ground, are worse for wear, and he gathers up the scissors and stabs Douglas 2 times in the chest, and we get the full character arc of the scissors helping birth these children, now killing Grandma Time upstairs, and then killing the real OG Douglas. And
Yes. And Gary says at this moment, I'm sorry you didn't get to see.
Yeah.
Like,
I
he
thought that was
very sad.
I thought that was pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, it was. And then this is the very moment that Mr. Tom wakes up after being hit in the back of the head with the can, and there just happened to be a shotgun between the two of them that was what's his name's Douglas's, and they are fighting to get the shotgun.
which Gary is clearly like almost to the trigger, and Tom barely has his fingers on the tip of the what's the
Barrel?
thing? No, the
barrel?
the barrel. I gun a lot.
You're doing great.
So we don't see what happens with them. We don't see the scuffle. We don't see exactly what plays out. We hear a shot, and then magically we have a guy upstairs with Mallory and the two babies, and he's helping them. And it ends up being that, Tom's there. He's our savior, and Mr. Gary is now dead. And so basically the only people we have left are the 4 of them, the 2 babies, Tom, and Sandra Bullock's character, because everybody else has succumbed to the things outside, mostly, other than poor Douglas.
And we cut back to current times, and it basically cuts back to 5 years later. So it's right before we've actually seen the movie. So we're in this small little gap of before the opening scene of the movie, but 5 years after the children being born. So their 5th birthday, and Mallory is teaching the kids how to click rocks, kind of not necessarily using echolocation, but I think that's kind of what she's teaching them, like clicking them to hear the sound bouncing and stuff. Mm-hmm. And up until like I really found out who Tom was after his exposition dump about being in Iraq and stuff, I just referred to him as Iraq dude from this point forward. And he's on the radio trying to get help, and Mallory is looting a house, and some cars pull up Tokyo Drift style.
Yeah. They do.
And I gave this movie an extra boost of points because the person that Tom is talking to on the radio at this time, I thought it was Nick Offerman. For a minute. I was like, oh fuck, yeah, Nick Offerman's in this. Okay, I'll give this movie an extra half point for this.
Yep. And so she is out there getting stuff out of a house with her little, I think she's still attached to that reel, right?
Yep, she's using the reel.
She's using the reel still. And like he said, that Nick said, that the cars drive up, and she grabs a negligee when she's there because it's in somewhere, and she decides to stuff that in her bag, and she goes back to the house. And I don't have a whole lot of notes here other than that she gets back. They go through what she has. They have naughty time. They talk about someone's over I call it the CB. It's
a shortwave radio.
Okay, so I don't know exactly what.
It's the same kind of radio that we saw in The Strangers that gets hit with an axe and stuff like that. Yeah, it's similar to a CB. Yeah.
Okay. So he starts talking to her about the safe place, and they are talking to them, I think, actually on there, and they're telling him where to go.
Yes.
And you have to see clearly, and you have to look because of the rapids.
Because one of them was mad that they mentioned that there were 4 of them, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like, don't say too much.
Yes.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock's basically like, don't fucking tell them they're kids. Just say there's 4 people.
Yeah.
And we find it because it's like, if they were kids, they wouldn't have told them to go down the rapids because it's so bad.
The guy on the radio, his name is Rick, and that's who they're talking to, Rick. Yes. And he'll say, and he's talking about, you'll hear the birds and then a small embankment to a wall.
And that's where you'll find, and then it kind of cuts out. So, when this is all going on, I've got where Sandra Bullock says her catchphrase. You don't think I know that, when she's talking to, Tom, because it's at this point I realize that Sandra Bullock, I think, says that in every movie she's in. You don't think I know that? So that's her new catchphrase, I feel like.
I checked out a little bit at this point. I think this is like the most boring part.
I've got a lot of notes and stuff here, but yeah, it's basically just trying to show you at this point, like, that her and Tom have a relationship, but it's not showing her being motherly. It's showing Tom being motherly and her being very Douglas-like, very, as it's alluded to kind of previously, kind of like her dad, maybe.
Yeah. Well, in this, after they talk to Rick on the I'm going to call it the CB because that's what I have it written as. They go outside to get water. And they're both blindfolded, her and Tom are, and they start arguing about whether or not it's safe or if Rick is lying. And they are arguing about it. And then I have it in here that they go back in and she is talking to, or Tom's talking to the kids and trying to give them hope. I think this is when he's telling them that story about climbing and
this is where I've got like, dude is about hope and Sandra Bullock is about survival.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And then she basically cuts off their story, doesn't let him finish. And she's, again, gets in a fight with Tom in this and says, they are never going to climb trees. They are never going to have friends. And then he throws back in her face, well, you never named the kids. So their names are girl and boy at this point in the movie. And this really pissed Nick off in the movie because he was like, that's so not right.
Fucking stupid. It's so fucking dumb.
What part?
The fact that she names them boy and girl.
I don't think it's stupid.
You don't think it's fucking stupid that she's...
No. Hear me out.
Okay.
Because she cannot be attached. If you give them names, you'll be more attached. She wants these kids to survive, but by not giving them names, she still has that distance.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. And this is why her supposed character arc that we get in the legit like last 2 minutes of the movie, I think, is bullshit and cheap.
Oh God, I died.
That's so fucking dumb.
I thought it was brilliant.
Oh, I fucking hated it because it felt cheap. It felt cheap.
Not.
She connects with
not
all
at the very end.
Yes,
not
she connects with all these people through the movie and has.
She
all
has
these
an arc before then.
No, but it's not with the kids, and it feels unwarranted.
It is with the kids.
It is. No. Yeah, she has it.
It's in the woods.
In the woods. That's when everything.
Nick's leaving.
That's when everything like comes crashing down, and she realizes like how much these kids actually mean, and how like devastated she really would be if something happened. Like it's survival, survival, survival. No attachment. I cannot have emotion. I have to have distance. And then realizing in that moment in the forest that there is an attachment, whether she wants there to be or not.
I just don't.
I agree with Tasha.
I just don't. It doesn't.
So
it doesn't
we're getting
feel
to that part.
Yeah, we're going. Go.
Okay, we're getting there. So anyway, he starts nagging her. Tom does about her not naming the kids, and she says every single thing I've done is for them. So she is very blatant, like everything, regardless of. And this is when I was telling Nick about this yesterday. I was like, we were arguing about this too, and he was like, yeah, except love them.
In her own way, she is.
I agree.
At a distance.
I agree. Okay. She is taking care of them in the way that's a necessity in order for survival. And Tom is the mom of this, and that portrayal of the feelings and the emotions. Fine. She doesn't need to do that at this point because he fills that role.
Right. Yeah, I 100% get that. Go on.
So Tom comes out and says, because of the cars and the crazies, and she's like, I heard them again. She says, he comes out and he says, you're not going out searching by yourself anymore. We're going as a family. And so they go out to get supplies again as a family. And they go in, or he goes in first, and then they all come in. He lets them in the house once he knows everything's safe.
That's so dumb. Tom is so fucking dumb. Like,
yeah, I don't necessarily like how this happened.
Why would you bring the kids? I don't care. Like, I'll go, you stay with the kids, or vice versa. You don't fucking take the kids when you know how fucking horrible it is out here.
I think I agree with that, but I also kind of understand his point of view. I think his point of view is like, if we stick together, if something happens, we can all go and we can escape together. And this way you're not stuck at home if they show up at the house and it's just the two of the kids and you. And so if we're all together, then we can protect each other together. I understand that there's like a problem with that at the same point, but I kind of get it at the same time.
I have a problem with Tom just repeatedly doing dumb shit because he's hopeful it's going to work out, and it never fucking does.
Well, it kind of does, because this scene works out not for him, but it works out for everybody else.
Yeah, but it didn't have to be this way at all. It's because he wanted to bring the whole family along, and everything is the reason he ends up doing what he does. If he didn't bring the family along, which was his idea, he wouldn't have to do what he does.
Probably.
He could have just escaped.
Maybe.
Yeah. And I saw it as like the kids could have easily hid in the house, like not come. Yeah. They could go, whatever. One could be lookout, whatever. But clearly that's not what happened.
No. So then they find Pop-Tarts in the kitchen, and they're finding medicines or whatever they're
Strawberry
finding.
Pop-Tarts, don't.
Strawberry Pop-Tarts, very specific.
One of the best.
And Mallory is apologizing to Tom in the kitchen about the fight that they had. And I thought that was also very big of her, because she's recognizing her faults and what she's done and apologizing for their fight. So then at this point, the kids are finding like a little area in this house that they're raiding that has a bunch of little toys, and they're just kind of hanging out. And they go down and all of them share a Pop-Tart. And you hear the cars, or before you hear that, they're talking about how this is real strawberry. This is what strawberry tastes like.
It does 100%.
Like.
Right.
Yeah.
Straight up, Smucker's jelly tastes exactly like strawberries. Straight up.
There you go. And so then that's when we hear the cars again, and they show up and they're like, is anybody home? And
they throw shit through the windows and break in.
Yes.
They could have been doing that everywhere the entire movie.
Yes.
Yes.
So...
But these people are also like, they're already blinded. Like, they're like, I don't even know how they're like the disciples of whatever's happening. So maybe they don't need to break in and get food. Maybe
no, I'm saying they could break in and get anyone anywhere all the time. There's no reason that, like, go ahead. Sorry.
I think they are doing that now. Before, when we were looking at the past, we're not very far into this all happening. And I think that's what's now happening. Like the guy in the boat, and now these guys in the cars, and they're now taking over that. And they're now basically being like groups of people that are going out and creating this havoc or whatever it is in order to make them see, basically to kill people.
Yeah.
So Tom tells her to go back to the house, and if he doesn't come back in 15 minutes, to take the kids in the boat and get the fuck out of here.
Stop real quick. Say that whole thing again. Don't talk and flip your thing, because I can't cut that out when you're... Yeah.
Sorry. So this is the part where Tom comes to her after he sees the people outside and they're calling to them. And he says, go back to the house, take the kids with you. And if I'm not there in 15 minutes, take the kids and get the fuck out of here and get on that boat and go find Rick or whatever it is. Like, go to that place that they were talking about. And they say goodbye, and it's very emotional a little bit. And they say that they love each other. And he gives her his necklace that I want to say the guy in the story in the military earlier in the movie had given him when he left, was it Iraq? I think it was. And then Tom does what Tom does, and he goes out and he faces the crazies, and he shoots 3 of them with his blindfold on because they make noise. And that was impressive. And then they're coming. What's my sign says? They're coming. They want to hurt you. Crazy guy says, "Oh, they're coming. They want to hurt you." And then he takes the blindfold off and decides. Tom does. Yes. Tom decides to say, "Fuck this." They know my family's alive. They've seen them run off. He knows that he has kids, and he's like, "I'm going to end all these motherfuckers so they can't get to my family." And that's basically what he does. And he goes and he shoots all these guys, and he gets there's the rustling and of the leaves.
We start seeing the leaves float.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's the shadow, and then Tom's eyes change. And there's only one guy left who's been shot, but he's not dead yet. And he, in his last ditch effort before everything, he kills the guy, and then he kills himself. And the first time I saw this, I teared up big time. This time I did not cry over this.
I didn't.
It seemed, like I said,
I knew that part was coming.
It seems unearned because of like I said, they didn't need to do this, and it's because of his own stupidity of bringing the kids and her along while doing this that he has to do this. And
so your mourning is unearned.
Yeah, it feels like, well, let's try to make this as emotionally impactful as possible. It just feels like he could have gotten killed there and everything, but the fact that it's like he did it to protect her and save her and all this stuff, I'm just like, this guy on the cover of the book, god damn it, no woman will ever love me the way that Sandra Bullock loves Tom.
So Mallory and the kids make it back to the house, and she kind of sits on a chair and she has her own mild meltdown and cries over Tom dying, and she decides to leave, and because she knows that he's not coming back. And that is basically then bringing us back to where the beginning of the movie starts. And now you're starting again on the river, and you're jumping to 42 hours on the river.
And I have in my notes, thank God we shouldn't get any more flashbacks.
Yeah. And so she's talking to the kids about their coming upon the rapids, and both kids offer to look. And Mallory's under this blanket with them, and she's getting choked up because she doesn't know who to decide to look. And she decides nobody's looking, and for everybody to cover their eyes. This is how they're doing it, and to hold on tight. That's what she tells them.
Yeah. The look of the little girl, once again, the actress that plays that little girl is phenomenal, because she tugged at my heartstrings so many times. Because when she was just sitting there like, okay, well, I know you're going to pick me, so I'll do it. And then she was just like so sad. Like, I can't believe I just said that. That broke my heart. I got a little teary-eyed on that one.
Yeah, it was very sad. And then we hit the rapids, and as expected, it's actually a really well shot scene, and you really get to feel and see like what they're going through and their experience. And I liked that about this. And the boat eventually goes over as expected, and she comes up for Mallory's character comes up for air, and she's yelling out for the kids, boy and girl. And she finds boy first, and he's like held onto like a rock, and then girl is ringing the bell on the shore, and she's just curled up on herself, soaking wet. And they make it through the rapids basically, and they are soaked as they're going through the woods, and they have their birds.
Well, hold on real quick.
Okay, what am I missing?
Well, you're not missing anything. I just have a comment at this point in the movie. So they all flip in. These are 5-year-olds. These are heavy rapids. Mm-hmm. I've been in rapids. None of them have safety vests or anything. Those kids are dead. She is more than likely dead as well in real life.
Well, this isn't real life.
I understand that, but it's trying to make this like survival thing. So for like at this point in the movie, what I thought was going to happen that would have worked for me, and it's because they cast Sandra Bullock, I knew that they weren't going to do this. I thought it was going to go kind of the way of The Road, which you previously mentioned. I thought Sandra Bullock's character was going to die. The kids were going to somehow get washed up onto the surface at the right near all the bird sounds, and that was going to be the payoff. And I think that would have been a better character arc for Sandra Bullock's character, personally.
Okay. I don't, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's fine. Because I feel like she did everything she could, even to the last minute, to save her kids.
I think both would have worked successfully, but I like this ending better.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think this movie is definitely made more towards women because of the mother aspect, and then the main male character that's like the love interest is a hot guy. So I think that we're kind of running into that. And so basically they start going through the woods in this movie, and her sister starts talking to her. So it's these entities that are surrounding them as they're blindfolded, and they're going through the woods trying to find these birds, like follow the sounds of the birds. And she starts hearing her sister talking to her, and she falls down like a ravine essentially, and the kids are yelling for her, so she gets separated from them, and they can't find each other because she bumps her head, wakes up. We don't know the time passing in this moment because she's out for a little bit. And she gets up and she goes to find the kids, and the alien, I call them the aliens in this, are trying to get into her head essentially, and they're talking to her, and they're also at the same time trying to get into the kids' heads and telling them, using her voice, which isn't really her, to tell them to take their blindfolds off.
I did like that about the thing. They just refer to it as the things.
Yeah.
I like that manipulation aspect of it. I wish they would have done that more.
Likewise.
And stuff. And like, that's where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, but you don't get it that often. So it's just like, I wish they would have done that more.
Yeah. And well, I guess it's just like, it's because it's with you this whole time. And so like you get to feel it. And I think that's the difference between the rest of the movie. It's like it shows and it goes. And this time it's like staying with them.
Here's a question that just kind of came to me. So you don't have to see them, right, for them to be doing that to you.
Right.
Why weren't they doing that to them in the truck when they're going to the grocery store, when they're completely surrounded?
They're inside of something.
There's all this kind of stuff that I'm like, go on.
Yeah. So she at this point is yelling at this entity saying, "Do not take my children," and she's trying to find them. And the kids are like, "I thought I'm not supposed to take my blindfold off," as they're thinking it's her. And like, this is where the anxiety raises when you're first watching the movie, because the little girl starts taking her blindfold off. And
this is the arc that I'm referring to, not the one at the end.
Okay. Yeah.
This part.
Yeah. And I love this part because I was sobbing like a baby. So, so she finds the boy. And then the boy says, and then she's calling for girl as she's holding boy and making sure he's okay. And the boy says to Mallory, "Well, she's scared of you. That's why she's not coming." And so Sandra starts going into the story about how much she loves her and cares about her, and just wants her to be okay, basically. And they need to go find the birds. And so the little girl comes to her and they embrace, and they go and they get to the wall of the birds, and she starts hearing Tom's voice, and it's calling to her, but she doesn't listen to it. And she starts grabbing the kids, and they're like running, I guess is what my thing says. And this is where the only time I heard intense music.
Yeah.
Things are following them.
Yeah, because it's hard to hear, like at points, like they can't even follow the bird sounds because of how loud the entity is around them. It's just like this cacophony of wind and leaves rustling and stuff. They can barely hear each other talk. And yeah, as they're running, they're being chased, trip, repeat, and they find a house. That's kind of like what I've got here. It's like they're running, they fall, they get up, they run, they fall, like that kind of thing. They get to the house, which when you first see it, I was like, oh, this looks like maybe like a military barracks kind of, some like fortification kind of thing. And she's freaking the fuck out about like, let us in, blah, blah, I have kids. And basically gets to the point where this is what I'm talking about. She's like, just please let my children in, which is fine. Like that's what I was talking about. Like do that kind of thing or whatever, but go on.
Yeah. So she's doing that, and they let her in and the kids in, and they check their eyes to make sure that they haven't been infected and they're not one of the crazies.
Which, go on.
I know. I know. Go ahead, Tasha.
I'm confused as to why you're upset yet don't want to say anything.
Like it's the whole thing of like when Gary shows up and stuff. Like
because that was 5 years later. They didn't know these things, and now they do.
We as the viewers are watching it, and we see his eyes all the time. Like you're saying, like go back and look, but it's like his eyes aren't fucked up.
You don't know that. We weren't paying attention. They were not making that a point.
I was. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I figured his...
Maybe you were blind. We don't know this.
Okay.
Sorry. So this is when they come in and they get to meet Rick, the guy they were talking to over the radio. And he says...
It's not Nick Offerman.
No, it's not.
I was sad.
Yes, it's the guy that's plays in Constantine as like the preacher in that.
Yep, he's in Identity. He's like the guy that's on trial in Identity. He's also in a movie called The Devil's Candy that maybe one day we'll cover. We might cover Identity too, because it's kind of like a thriller horror kind of movie.
Mm-hmm. So then he tells them they can take their blindfolds off, and then it cuts to a sign that is at the school for the blind.
Yeah,
Pride.
It is Janet Tucker's School for the Blind.
Yep. I thought that was really cool. And then
I thought that was a good twist. I liked that. I liked that.
And there was a lot of people there, but the majority of them are blind, and I liked that a lot. And Rick basically just says, "Go and look around, enjoy your time, or whatever." And then he's like, "I'm going to go get you some dry clothes," which I thought that was really kind.
Please just end the movie here.
Yeah, I agree. I like the very end, but this would have been satisfying too. Honestly, I would have been fine with them. I would have been fine with them ending it at the door of the building, because I was starting to get to the point of there's nothing and it's just going to be hopeless at the end. Yeah. Like, she had that big monologue, which I wish I could remember everything she said to the kids, because I was sobbing uncontrollably at that point about like, we just have to stay together and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just a ball of tears. So like, and as they're running, I was going through my head, like, is this actually going to end in any way? Is there really a place? Because you can kind of, like you said, you can kind of hear the birds, you kind of can't. And the birds are kind of everywhere. It's not in one direct spot. So like, I was still going through is this real? Is this not?
Oh, so, it would have been for me, it would have been amazing if it was the entity making bird noises, luring them in.
Exactly. That's where my mind went to a point. Mm-hmm. But so then when they saw the door and they knocked, like once that door opened, that would have been a cool ending too.
I agree, because then it would have left it open-ended and you would have had to make your own conclusion. So yeah. I like that. But no, they definitely don't do that in this. And so they decide to let their birds free, because the whole place is like a sanctuary where all the birds are.
Yeah, she says, let's let the birds be with their friends, she's saying to the kids.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm still crying.
Yes. And then she's running. This is the part that I hated the most, I think, other than the foreshadowing earlier, was she runs into her old doctor.
Yeah, I don't know why that was important.
I don't either. Like, she wasn't a big part of this.
This is what I'm saying. This is supposed to be like, oh, I knew you back when you weren't motherly, but now you are. Like, this is such a cheap thing for me.
I did not like that part. I was just like, why?
And it's because of this. It's because of her meeting her and introducing the kids that she then goes on to finally
name them. Yes. And she names the little girl after her biological mom.
Olympia.
Yes, Olympia instead of Olivia, because I swear that's what I said through this whole movie. Anyway, and then the boy is after Tom, which was technically, like in this movie, his proxy dad.
Olympia gave Mallory name ideas for this child. Does not name her any of them. They're all Disney princesses.
Yeah.
She specifically wanted to call her Cinderella so she could call her Ella.
That's what I was hoping for.
That's what I was hoping for too.
And I just fucking hated this part so much. I'm sorry.
I did not like that, because I felt like it was just like her giving names off the cuff and she hadn't thought about it at all. And it was like, you're Tom.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the guy that died that loved you and took care of you for 5 years. His name was Tom. And then you're Olympia because your mom that you came out of that died tragically, her that's her name. She should have named her Ella. And then Tom was fine name.
It was an honor name.
Should have named her son Ryan after the dad, or Douglas after the real OG, or just name the child Scissors, because obviously she doesn't give a shit about naming them anyway for 5 fucking years.
But she loved Tom, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but actually I just thought about this right now. Wasn't her sister's name Jess?
Yeah.
You should have named him Jess.
Anything. And it's just like... Oh, I hate this. I hated it so much.
Yeah. I liked that they finally have identities, and the only thing I like about this is that it takes their drama, all this stuff trying to survive, and then they get to the point where they can finally breathe and let their hair down, essentially, and the birds get to be free, and now you get to have humanity, and you get to love, and you get to basically breathe for the first time. So now you get your name, and
Exactly.
I like that part.
Yeah.
I just think the names were very poorly chosen.
I think the fact that since she met her OBGYN, that is supposed to be, oh, you know what? Let me tell you about your mother. And you, child, you are named this. And then the fucking film ends. It's so cheap. Sorry.
And then the kids get to go play, and you get to see that.
The
The end. The movie's over. Nick's happy.
God, they're so okay. So that's Bird Box. I know that I fucking tore it to shreds while we were going through and everything. It is not a bad movie. There is a good story in it, but my problem with it is how it's put together. Is my biggest
part of it.
That's fine. But that's my biggest thing. If it would have been put together in a more linear way, that would have caused there to be more tension. It wouldn't the foreshadowing wouldn't have been so bad and everything. I would have easily given this movie an extra point, or maybe a point and a half. Well, definitely an extra point and a half if Nick Offerman were in it. He wasn't, but yeah.
So then why don't you go ahead and start then?
Okay, I'm gonna make this brief, but I am giving Bird Box a 5.
Okay.
Because I have huge issues with what I consider undeserving payoffs, and I use that lightly. I think that what they're doing, like with Tom and like with the names at the end and stuff, I don't think that they're warranted personally. Like, I just don't think it works. And then the fact that it's not like they try to use this back and forth mechanic in the movie to make it like two things going on at the same time. I don't think they do it well. And I think it gets really choppy because of it. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It is 5 for me. Is like, it is a movie that through all of its flaws, it will have its people championing it. I didn't know what the score of this movie was before I gave it its score. So when I did end up reading Metacritic and all that stuff, giving it between 5s and 6, I'm like, I believe that for once, I think that's where it should sit personally. Excuse me, I am not the target audience for this film. I am aware of that. And because of that, I am going to leave the floor to you women to give your you girls. You're both. I'm not saying.
I didn't say you said anything.
Just how you said it, really, more than anything.
I'm saying I'm giving the floor to you women, to you guys. It would have been the same. Shut up. I'm not going to disparage this film anymore, is what I'm saying. I got it out of my system. It's a 5 out of 10 for me.
Okay.
You guys, give the floor to you, genderless things that we don't see.
Go for it, Tasha.
You women. So I really like dual timelines. I like the back and forth. Knowing that it's a book, that's yet another thing that I seek out in books are multiple timelines, multiple perspectives. So I really like that component of it. I get bored if it's too linear. If it's linear all the time, I can check out of it pretty quickly. Thus the inattentive component of it. Going back and forth keeps me interested because then I'm excited to go back to the other timeline and jumping. I do think there are a lot of holes in it that aren't addressed. But that's another thing. It's kind of the nature of a book adaptation. There wasn't a ton of storyline, and going back, like taking myself out of watching it, I'm aware of that. Watching it in the moment, I had such an emotional reaction to a lot of it. That part got that was okay because it affected me emotionally, which I look for in a lot of movies, either scared or, tugging on the heartstrings, having that mom component that does that for me. I'm giving this a 7.5. I'm giving this an 8. I've been bouncing between a 7 and an 8, and I think I'm going to give it an 8. Wow. I will definitely watch this again. I will recommend it to people. I can look past the plot holes and the bits of where it's not really realistic because of that huge emotional component that movie gave me. Because a lot of movies and books don't do that, which is why I hearken it back to The Road, because The Road is one of my favorite books because of the way it makes me feel. It doesn't make me feel good, but it can evoke that type of emotion that I look for in a lot of things.
See, and I think that The Road is I'm not trying to make this a gender thing. I think The Road is the male version of Bird Box.
Oh yeah, it's a dad and a son. How could it not be the male equivalent?
Well, I'm saying I connected with Viggo Mortensen's character in that way more. His reasonings for doing things, and in this I didn't. So that's why I'm saying it's not. I tried. It's not for me though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because we're talking about a female narrated movie and her lack of emotion and then her overall story and building a plot. So I can see that this movie probably won't hit specifically for men in the same way it's going to hit for women. I also kind of feel like that in some of the other movies we've watched, we have a different relationship with different characters based on our own life, whatever we've been through on our own.
Absolutely.
So I feel especially even we talked about this when we watched The Witch, somebody who is very religious is going to hit you pretty damn hard in that movie, a lot more than it's going to hit us because we don't necessarily follow that religious background. So this movie, I'm kind of like Tasha in that, this is literally my 5th time I've seen this movie. I watched it. I had my kids watch it. And it's a very emotional movie in the sense that it's just so tragic, and that hit me hard. I know that there's some plot holes. I know they don't answer everything, but I actually think that that's okay in the storyline because it's coming from a specific narration standpoint. She doesn't know everything, therefore we don't know everything. And so that makes sense to me. And I like the crazies component of it. Nick did not like that part of it.
I personally just thought it was kind of disparaging to the mentally ill.
Yeah,
that's a part that I could take or leave. That's another thing. I wonder if it's more brought up in the book.
Yeah, I wonder too. And overall, I think this movie is very watchable. Like I said, I've gotten emotional or cried in this movie every single time I've seen it. So that says something about it. And I am one of those people that will rewatch movies over and over again if I really, really love them. And I don't want to say I really, really love this, but I do like it. I would watch it, once a year or something like that to kind of come back and relive that. This is not a movie that you're going to get a bunch of Easter eggs in. So we've watched Trick or Treat and we've seen other movies where you're going to get those Easter eggs where you can go back and you'll be like, oh man, I missed this the last time. You don't really do that in this movie. There'll be maybe little blips, like Tom in the beginning of this movie. I didn't realize this the first time I watched it. He's running across the road before we even see him become a character in the movie. So there's parts of that, but it just hits very emotionally. So I'm going to go with Tasha in this. I was going between a 7 and an 8 for myself. I'm going to go with a 7.5. I feel like it's very watchable, and I think being a mom, I can relate to this a lot, and what I would do if I was in this situation or think I would do. God, I hope I never have to deal with this, because that's just horrible. And I like Sandra Bullock, so I liked it. I thought 7.5 is pretty fair.
So that gives us a 20.5 out of 30. So what's that give us for our total scoring?
It only gives us a 68.
68. That's what I thought we'd be about. It's a pass. It's above 50%.
I feel like it would have been higher. That's well, I guess that's close to a 7 out of 10. So
it's me. It's my fault.
But
like I said, I think that's a fair way though, 68%. I think that's, for as much as you guys like it and as much as I don't like, I won't watch this again, personally. But it doesn't mean that if somebody is looking for something a little new that they haven't seen or are just trying to dip their toes, like this is like horror light. It's more in the sci-fi thriller, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, but it straight up does have elements of horror in it. Like, I would not say this is not a horror film, so that's why we're covering it. Like, it still does, like, it's not like a horrifying movie. Like, if I would have like tooled with it, it would have been super depressing, and they still give you that glimmer of hope at the end of it and everything like that, which I'm not a fan of, but that's me. I like my films being downers and stuff like that at times. So
yeah, the suicide component of this movie as a whole is just really
that's the downer. That's the downer through the film.
Like, it's intense, like because of the amount of times you see this, especially in the beginning of the film. Like that's your opener almost. It's like you're being thrust into this world, and if I do think that because some people have been through bad situations like that in their lives where people have died in tragic ways, if that is a trigger for you, you should not watch this movie because it is. It definitely hits on that hard.
Well, and also, if you are having those thoughts, reach out to somebody, and there are people and family members that do care about you and stuff. I have a history of depression, severe depression and anxiety and stuff like that. I have been there, and there is always help. So with that being part of the film and stuff, if you're like that, there's... And I'm a pessimist, but there's always help. There's always people. So, but that's our reviews of it, giving it a 68%, and now it's on to movie club. So for next week's episode, we will be covering. Better look around. Is everybody ready? The movie is. I know Tasha loves it when I do this. The movie is Hush.
Oh.
The movie's Hush.
Okay.
So for our next episode, we will be covering the movie Hush.
Okay, I've never seen that, so this was interesting.
This is another Mike Flanagan joint.
This is a Tasha movie. Okay.
This is a Tasha movie. Yep.
She picked this one. So for Pot of the Dead, I am Nicholas.
I am Natasha.
And come listen to us. Or else.